I'd like to call to order the Shakopee School Board regular business meeting for June 24, 2024. Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Michelle, Brophy,
Here.
Peterson, here, Smith,
Here.
Aldrich,
Here.
Johnson, Mohammed,
Yes.
Valdez, here, Aditya.
Here. Can you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone. We've got a packed agenda tonight and some distinguished guests. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, our Saber Pride item, item 3. And first up is item 3.1. We are recognizing our student school board member, Aditya Paranjape. This is his last day with us. And I have the pleasure of being Aditya's mentor. And Aditya, along with Danielle Dake, were the first two student school board members in quite some time. I don't know exactly how many years, but I know it's been a while. And Aditya has the honor of being the first 2-year member on the board. Just for me personally, it's just been a joy having you here. Your insights and contributions have been invaluable, and it's can be tough to see you go after all this time. And I know you're going to be at the U of M at College of Science and Engineering, and so wish you well there. And does anyone else have any comments? Well, we've got a little bag there from all of us that Tiffany put together. Do you have any parting thoughts? This is you get the last word here.
It has been a privilege and an honor to be part of this school board, and I've said this before, I knew before being on the school board, I knew the school board did a lot of things, but I didn't know the extent of all the things and all the different processes, all the different rules, regulations that went into doing anything on the school board. I didn't know anything about that, and it's been a massive privilege to be able to learn that process and go through it and get a good understanding and appreciation for all the time and effort and processes that go into making the school district as good as it can be. And as sad as I am to leave, I'm happy that I was able to learn so much from all of you and got to experience this experience. It's never going to come again. I'm happy that I was lucky enough to experience it.
Aditya, I just want to tell you you've done a great job. It's been a pleasure getting to know you the last 2 years, and I would hope people just join me and let's honor Aditya.
Chair Smith, if I may, we have a speaker on the agenda that's about 4 minutes behind for item 3.2, just so you can know how you'd like to proceed.
All right, thank you. We will come back to item 3.2 then when our speaker arrives. We'll go through the next few items here. And do you know when they're going to be here? Or?
Approximately 4 minutes.
4 minutes, you did say that. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we can get through a couple items here. Let's do item 4 on the agenda, the consideration of the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Brophy and a second by Aldrich. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next is item 5, our public comment section. This is the time where members of the public can participate in the meeting without being part of the meeting agenda. A member of the public may address the board on an agenda topic or on another topic. We allocate a total of 15 minutes for public comment at this meeting. Each individual speaker may speak for up to 2.5 minutes. The sign up for public comment has been conducted online and in person prior to this evening's meeting. No one has signed up for public comment prior to this evening's meeting. We will move on to the next item on the agenda. Next on our agenda is item 6, the consent agenda. And you can see we have several personnel items, minutes from the last meeting, our bills, wires. And we have scoreboard agreements, donations, CAP agency, YMCA and cross-country agreements.
I can make the motion to be approved.
Motion by Mohammed and a second by Peterson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. All right. We have 2 distinguished guests here tonight. Next on our agenda is item 7.1, legislative update. And we're pleased to have our state senator for District 54, Senator Eric Pratt. Welcome, Senator.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Smith and directors for the invitation. I appreciate it. And just let me say thank you for your service. I know, local government, particularly schools, are extremely important to our communities. Oftentimes our schools are the heart of our communities. It's where we come together and coalesce and I don't envy the job that you have. You're expected to be perfect all the time. Well, actually, let me put it this way: perfection is expected, and anything less than that is difficult. I have just a few notes.
On the floor.
Oh, there we go. Just because I know we're on a tight schedule. Let me just start off by saying I don't want this to be a partisan discussion, but I also have my opinions, and those are influenced by my beliefs and values. So please don't take them as politically partisan. They're just meant to be my thoughts, and you're welcome to agree or disagree. Public schools in Minnesota have been a part of our values for a long time. It's been held in high regard that every child have access to a public education. And as I see my role in the Minnesota Senate, it's to help promote and protect that right that we've guaranteed our students in our state conversation. And so when I think of education, I really want to focus on the student. What does that student need? I want to enable that student to be successful in the classroom. I want them to they need a great teacher in front of them. Now, I'm a finance and a banking guy, so I would be remiss to say that you need stable and reliable funding as well. But you also need community and parent support. I think if we get, and when I look at things that are important in education, I try to put them through those lenses. I've been extremely proud to talk about the various programs in our Scott County schools, and I know the superintendent and I have talked to other legislators about the academies at Shakopee and really linking a student's education to their career futures. And I think it's been a great success, and congratulations to you on that. But even as we have great schools in this district, in these communities, we are not immune to the issues and the problems that are faced statewide by other districts. I'm just gonna, it seems like whenever there's a problem with Minneapolis public schools or St. Paul public schools, there's a reaction to have to, and oftentimes it's due to their own lack of leadership that we end up with a one-size-fits-all solution. And it impedes upon what I believe is the local control and your ability to meet the needs of your students. So a couple issues that come to mind. some of them, have affected other communities in the county more than you, but, one was the school resource officer controversy. Not really a problem, but we created one, and it was an issue that should have been fixed in a special session last year. Regretfully, we didn't end up passing the law and getting it signed in the law until mid-March. But in that meantime, we kept a lot of uncertainty out there. And even though we had 80-some schools that made some change to their school resource officer agreements or suspended their school resource officer agreements, even communities like Shakopee, there were concerns within law enforcement and other areas as I talked to folks that, there were still concerns with that law under the surface, even though you were able to help make it work. And kudos to you and your partnership with the city on being able to do that. As we've seen in some other communities, it was really important that, I think we've seen the importance of school resource officers. Regretfully became a partisan issue, and it should have never been a partisan issue. But I'm glad we got it fixed, and I think that was a good thing to come out of this session. We've got prescriptive discipline policies that have come out, and I talked to a couple of principals who have said that they're going to be difficult to implement. I worked on the revision of the teacher licensure system, and I was disappointed to see new regulations that make Tier 2 licenses more difficult to get. So if you think about it, the idea was that we had 4 tiers of licenses. One was effectively replacing the community expert by putting in some minimal criteria. 2 was for people who were working in the district. So many districts came to me and they said they wanted to do a grow your own program. We had alternative teacher prep programs like Teach for America that wanted to come in. And so we created a Tier 2 system that allowed someone to be working and to be getting their, be progressing to a full license. And it became particularly interesting that teachers with existing licenses were using it to get additional credentials. And I talked to one teacher in Prior Lake who was using it to become a special ed teacher. He was able to work in special ed and get the necessary licensure credentials in order to become a fully licensed special ed teacher, and so that's going to be more difficult. Like I say, I worked on that, and I think that was one that I felt particularly sad to see impacted. I was really glad to see that we put some additional money towards the READ Act. As you know, a child's ability to read at grade level by 3rd grade is probably the best indicator that we have of their academic success. And I've been working on literacy and different issues for a long time. I think this is one of the most exciting programs that we have. I would hope that the Department of Education be a little bit more flexible for schools to implement the program, but I'm extremely pleased that we're finding that renewed focus and energy and actually putting our resources behind it to get it moving. I was also happy to see that we put together a study on truancy to look at the root causes of chronic absenteeism and look at ways to combat that issue. Representative Bayford, who will be here one other week, was extremely instrumental in getting that through, and it was a particular interest of Scale, which is a collaboration of all our Scott County local governments. A couple of things that I didn't think went very well. Last session we passed paid family medical leave. This session we made some changes to it. Paid leave is going to cost Minnesota school districts over $173 million in 2026 and 27. And that information comes from the actuarial reports as well as the Legislative Budget Office. We put sick and save time mandates into place that override collective bargaining agreements. We had the creation of a state librarian at the Department of Education in St. Paul. Now, I find it hard to believe that we have to put that position in up in St. Paul when we have so many school districts that are cutting staff and really struggling. Unemployment for seasonal workers, your bus drivers and those folks. I served as chair of the Jobs Committee, and I was in charge of unemployment insurance during the COVID crisis. And I can tell you, it's an interesting system once you learn it. As a reimbursable employer, that cost is going to fall entirely on you. So you're not part of the insurance pool, but you have to reimburse the pool for those amounts paid out. And according to the legislation, you can't levy for that cost. And I would say expanding voluntary pre-K a year early was, I think, a disappointment. I think there were other ways that we could use that money that would be more effective for student achievement. And it puts, in my mind, it exacerbates the issue we have with our shortage in childcare. So, I would say my criticism of the last biennium was that the legislature has really tried to micromanage school districts from St. Paul. Almost all of our 331 school districts oftentimes find solutions for the issues that seem to come up. I served on a school board. I know we came up with those creative solutions that work for the students, work for the for the rest of the student body. But again, it seems like we have to have these one-size-fits-all mandates, which in my mind impedes your ability to serve your students, your families, your staff, and your community. And Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you for being here, Senator Pratt. I appreciate your support of all of our schools across the state of Minnesota, and obviously specifically Shakopee and Scott County schools. But I just want to piggyback a little bit off of what you said about local control. Not every school district is the same, and not every school district has the same needs, and I know that, we know that, but I think it's just really, really important that we try to maintain as much local control as possible, so that we can meet the needs of our students in our district the way that we see that the needs need to be met. And obviously next year we know that it's a new biennium and budgets are going to be set, and I know that you're very supportive of our schools, but funding obviously is up for discussion starting in January again, and how important it is to continue to give us the increases more than the 2% that we've received, except for this last year with the 4%. But the additional more than the 2% increase to cover what the inflation costs are is critical. So hopefully we can work together at the Capitol and try to achieve closing that gap even further. Got a long ways to go, but 2 and 2 is not going to close the gap moving forward.
Absolutely, and thank you for that comment. When inflation was running at 1.5%, 2% seemed, pretty good. I was on the board when we had 3 years of flat funding, and unfortunately, we were never able to kind of make that up along the way. What I would say is that it's not just the amount of money that's spent on schools, but it's how it's allocated. And one of the criticisms that I've had, and a local superintendent said to me that it was like getting $1,000 but being told how to spend $995 of it. And so I agree with you. We need to be able to put more money on the formula, which then also automatically increases some of the money that goes into special education and some of the other compensatories.
You're right.
that are so important, that are in your control to meet the needs that your students, your families, your staff need, and not being told how to spend $995 out of $1,000. Wow, I did so good.
Yeah, please.
I just want to tell you thank you, number one, for being here tonight, and number two, just being available, and certainly being a state senator that we can connect with, we can reach out. You always return our emails, our phone calls, and that is much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate your partnership as well. And as the superintendent knows, I often brag about our Scott County schools and the academies of Shakopee, which I've been involved in on the advisory board has been a tremendous success. And I think, I'll be honest with you, when I first heard about it, I went, let's see how this goes. Wow, it succeeded. I think it exceeded my expectations. And really, I hope will be a model for what others do. I would say I hope we don't mandate it. I think it was, you talked about the local control, and that's what allowed the innovation to have something like this program. Not only to be able to be considered and implemented, but to become the success that it is. So, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. All right, our speaker has arrived, so we are going to go back to item 3.2, our spring activities presentation with Andy Brown, our activities director.
All right.
Hey, Andy.
Greetings, board. Apologies for being a little late and for being one of the sweatiest presenters you probably have. My soccer team that I coach, this was our last practice of the season, and because of all the rain, we also haven't had more than one practice in the last 3 weeks, so it's just been a wild time, so I had to get out there with the humidity and all. In trying to come up with the highlights here, I just want to let you know that I feel like the stuff that I kind of pulled out doesn't even really scratch the surface of how many cool things were happening. Just as I think I've mentioned before, I don't run in clear seasons the way that the sports do, so when I come in, it's kind of always thinking back, what did I tell you about already, and what might you want to hear about. So just know that this is just a hint of kind of some of the cool things that are going on. Our spring play was The Hobbit. It was really well received. We had the best attendance we've had for the spring play in a long time. I think partially just the name recognition. Had a few people show up, a few audience members show up in costume and some things like that. So it was really fun. Big cast and just lots of laughs and some good special effects in there. We're really excited about the season for next year. That's another clip there you put up. We're doing Guys and Dolls for the fall musical, which is a classic, a really fun one. It's been a long time since it's been done in Shakopee. Couldn't figure out exactly when. We just know there was a hint that it was in there somewhere. So excited about that one. And then in the spring, we're doing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, this is actually the first year that this is available for high schools to do. So our director was really, has been kind of following the progress within the last year. A lot of times when a property like this comes available, they'll do a test run. So there was like a couple schools in each state that got to do it last year, and then they give a bunch of feedback, and then they send something out. And our director is already trying to work with our engineering and construction classes and teachers to try to see what they can build and some of the special effects that they might be able to create. There's some different things that might need some metalworking and some woodworking, kind of just beyond what our normal set builder could do in that short calendar. So she started that process of doing that. So we're pretty excited to be, we don't know at the moment if anyone else in the metro is doing it at all, but we'll probably find out fairly soon if anyone else has the rights for this upcoming year. But either way, we'll be one of the first right off the bat. So that's kind of fun. Again, name recognition should draw some good crowds. We sent 2 teams, this is right before the end of the school year, we sent 2 teams to the eSports state finals, a Rocket League team and a Super Smash Brothers team. Both, I think, finished 1 win out of placing where they were. So that was pretty cool. Alexi Houston, who's on our Rocket League team, he was here. He was at a meeting not too long ago. He was actually our senior athlete of the year and the first one to have a plaque that had that is the two other sports he plays, hockey and tennis, and then also they put esports on the plaque that he got for it. So that was kind of a cool thing. They went to St. Cloud State University, which has like a full esports program and a dedicated facility that they said was fantastic. So the hope would be that maybe at least a couple kids, their eyes open, and this is something that they could do in college, or a hook to get them thinking about post-secondary education at the very least. So that would be great. Yeah, they got to go up with Andy Benson, who's one of our art teachers, is in charge of that. Our DECA program set 10. I think that works out to 10. 8 qualifiers there. Some of them are pairs. To the international conference that was in Los Angeles, actually. So they went out to Los Angeles and competed, didn't have any place winners or finalists, but that's the whole squad. That is more than 10 if you were counting the picture. So they had a good showing there. Last time I was here, I talked about our culinary club had just left to go to the Pro Start Invitational, the National Pro Start Invitational, where they placed 13th. There's one team out of each state. There were 2 states that didn't have a culinary team, so that's 13th out of 48 at Nationals for the first time ever with this program. And if you've met Heather Bombach, it wouldn't surprise you that she came back and she said, well, I know how we'll win next year. And that's kind of her mindset is just absolutely maximizing what they can do. But it was, they had an incredible experience and it showed up really well for the school there. So we have that. Speech finished off their season. As usual, we have by these kind of big point systems in which students accumulate points, that's run by the National Speech Debate Association. We have, feels like every other week I get a letter in my mailbox that says you've now achieved diamond, platinum, triple status, and all these things. And so we do have a top, nationally, like a top 5% speech program. It really performs well. So you can see we had a ton of state competitors and placed 2. In there, Shea Manur with 4th and Srihan Abilala in 7th place. The NSDA tournament, there are 2 national tournaments. The NSDA is the tougher one because there's like a single qualifying tournament. So they went in there. You can tell that when we list somebody as being top 125, that tells you that they're competing against 300 or 400, I think, in the initial category. And so Rohan finished 31st. In that. And then the NITOC is the other national tournament. This was just this last week, and you can qualify for that by just performance over the course of the season, so enough placing and enough finishes at the various registered tournaments, and you can get to that one. So we went there and had these 5 students, what they call the octafinals, which is the top 60, again, out of another starting 300 or 400 or whatever, depending on the category. So another banner year for the speech team. Yeah. So there's that. I'm really excited about this next one. Our fishing club has kicked off. We've got teams in the Minnesota Junior Bass Nation. Luke Allison, who's a special ed teacher, and then Jeff Briggerman is a community member. We're kind of spearheading that with some other parent help. And so we've got 5 teams competing. You can see that group on the top there. Noah and Tanner finished 6th. I can't tell if he's just holding that one on the far left closer to the camera, but I think that really was a huge one. That put him up in the standings there. So this was on Prior Lake last Wednesday, which was a terrible weather day. And they have their second competition 2 days from now on Lake Laconia. So I'm hoping I can get over to that one and see. The other team in the bottom right there, those are both kids of district employees as well. So, Rachel Plesson and Elizabeth Deere, those are their kids competing on the team there. They took 10th in this one. So we're hoping to finish high enough to get a couple teams to the state tournament for that as well. And then the last one, we got all sorts of other things that have wrapped up or kicking off. Our Ultimate Frisbee team concluded their season, had a really successful run in the middle of the season and rattled off like 5 straight wins, and then had a little dip going into the state tournament, and I think went like 1-3 at the state tournament, if I remember. We won both probably a good development in general is that we've got our head coaches needs to step down and give a little more time to his kids, and he's still planning on participating, but we've already got some alumni interested in taking over and helping coach with that, and they've kind of set up a little bit of we've had alumni coming back and spectating and helping out a little bit, and I think that will really help build the program. The FCCLA National Conference is in a week. Don't ask me what the acronym stands for, but that's our education students who competed in the state, at the state level and qualified for nationals. They're going to Seattle with Shauna Wilson, one of our VAX teachers. About, I think 3 out of the 5 students are covered under the Grow Your Own grants. So that's one of the things that has really, that has paid off in is students being able to travel and compete in this stuff and just get all that additional training and experience, hopefully as future educators in our district. Mountain biking starts in about a week, July 6th, I want to say off the top of my head. Does that sound right? Check with you guys, 8th maybe?
It's like the
Yeah, the 8th. So mountain biking will kick off, and we'll be off and running with that again. And then marching band starts right about the same time. Our numbers are up from 40 to about 60 as of last count, and we maybe we'll have a flag line. We're about 2 people short of what we need to actually do a flag. So Michelle, if you're not busy. Just trying to recruit, just trying to get more. Anyway, so we may have that. So we're kind of continuing that little bit of slow growth. They'll do the same thing where they have they're not going to do any major competition, or they're going to walk in the state fair parade again. And then we've also got something that may be open to other band students where they're going to go play with the University of Minnesota. So there's kind of this open thing where they create this huge band at the U, and they get to watch the U marching band and those things. So we're hoping that can maybe fire up and kind of push us into that next level of participation in the marching band. So just trying to be cautious about growing it, slowly enough, that it doesn't implode, but be ambitious enough that people want to do it and want to be part of it. So. So those things are, starting up in a week or so, not much of an off season in this world, like I said, so lots of things going on, but not too busy until the fall starts again. So, that's the big run of stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot. Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any questions or comments? Oh, it's exciting. Right. Great. Thank you very much for
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bill is anticipating. We're up to item 7.2 with our second distinguished guest. We have Bill Reynolds, the City Administrator for the City of Shakopee. Thank you for joining us, Bill.
Well, thank you for the invite. I'm always owing Mike favors, so anytime I get it, I'd like to do something. I check something else off my list that I don't have to do for him later. Thank you very much. First of all, let's start off first and foremost. Thank you for what you do, for the strong partnership we have and have had for some time now. And, we really appreciate everything that you bring to the table and some of the things, one that Mike and I worked on specifically that I'm going to reference in the future here. But we've had many things that we worked on together, including being one of the co-sponsors for the Human Services Academy, which we are exceptionally proud of. I try to advocate for the academies at every opportunity. And they are truly a transformational educational environment here, and we're proud to be a part of that. So just really quick, I've got some slides I want to go through. This makes my council happy, whenever I get to knock some of these points out, so please bear with me just a little bit. Our mission is to deliver high-quality services essential to maintaining a safe and sustainable community. We commit to doing this effectively with integrity and transparency. Those are 2 things that are very important to me personally, and those are anytime the administration is involved with anything, we're talking about integrity and transparency. Big things for us as a whole. Our values, integrity. Well, there's a shocker right at the top. You can read them yourself. The one I want to refer to and the one that we're most proud of is the last one, fun. We're one of the few governments that I'm aware of that actually has the word fun listed as one of our values. We mean it. We're an entertainment community. That's what we do. But we also recognize internally that we have to enjoy what we do. And we take our roles, our jobs very seriously. We do not take ourselves seriously. If you come to my office, every time I walk in, there's something else that somebody's put in there that's making fun of me personally. you know what, it's a great environment to be a part of, and we're proud of that fun piece. Really quickly, our government is what's called a weak mayor form of government. I answer to a board, which, much like Dr. Redmond does. And, for me, I don't need to count as high as here. I have to count to 3. I have 5 board members, including the mayor. And my role is not to make everyone happy. I can't make everyone happy. I can't make every board member happy. I can't make every resident happy. Because if I'm making you happy, I'm probably making you unhappy. So the key is we look at things very simply. We want very much to do what's in the best interest of the community as a whole. And I am sure that I'm just regurgitating exactly the way you guys look at things as well. We're very aware of that. I have 177 full-time and 197 part-time staff, and you can see them right there. One of the things you can see that we actually have a pretty big recreation department, which is 21 people in and of itself. That's bigger than my Department of Administration. Financial goals. We are very, very, very proud of our place as one of the lowest tax communities in the Twin Cities area. We are the 7th lowest tax, and this will change this year when we will be even lower, probably within the top 5 in the whole state of the 60 that are above 20,000 population. Out of those, there are 3 of those that are higher than us that actually receive money from the state, including this thing called fiscal disparities. Fiscal disparities only happens in Minnesota. It's one of those great things that we all shake our heads and scratch our heads about, where they take $7 million of tax money from the residents of Shakopee and give it to other communities. Sort of like our poor friends in Prior Lake, who can't afford their taxes apparently. So we give Prior Lake $2 million a year. I often would just wish the state would let us keep our $7 million, and we would even be more lower when it comes to our tax rates. I'm a Marine, so you have to bear with me. I say things with graphs. I can understand that. I really couldn't understand the other slide, so that makes it a lot easier. And we have one of the lowest cost of living, or cost of our services that we're responsible for amongst cities as well. And we're under $1,000 compared to our comparable and local cities, which you can see on the slide. Also something we're very proud of. We are a fiscally conservative community, and we take pride in that. In this particular budget, our tax rate decreased, and if your value of your home didn't go up, you should have received a tax break as well. And we have a history of doing that in Shakopee. Just note that I pay more for these than my annual property tax bill. Cell phone, cable, TV, and internet, electricity, and gas. That's all more. I pay more on my family cell phone plan than I do in taxes. One of the ways that we can keep our taxes low is this slide right here, the role of growth. We are a growing community. It's very important because as we continue to grow, your piece of that pie, that tax pie, gets smaller. I don't understand that. I don't know how it works. You got to talk to the finance people. They can kind of figure it out for you. I just regurgitate what they tell me, and they tell me that that's the case. But the bottom line is that there isn't a lot that the city can do in and of itself to promote growth, but we can manage growth. There are a few things that we can, and we manage it typically through our zoning code, trying to make sure that we have the ability to have certain sectors have certain things that are in them. Now, this year, we almost lost that. I want to thank Senator Pratt for being on the front lines of helping us keep, something as simple as our zoning code in place, so where we know what we're going to have, because if you think about it, we build infrastructure for what we're planning to have in that particular area. So if we are building infrastructure for 25 single-family homes in a certain area, and then suddenly somebody decides that they want to build an industrial factory there, the stuff that's in the ground isn't going to marry up, and that's a real concern. And then we have to ask ourselves, who's paying for it? Chances are pretty good it's us paying for it, which means It's all of you paying for it. And how are we growing? This is stuff, these are currently on the books right now, being developed or in the pipeline. That is a lot of homes, that's a lot of apartments, that's a lot of activity. But it's not only there, it's commercial industrial too. I think as you drive around in our industrial sections, you can see big buildings going up all over the place. But what we're really particularly excited about is what's happening in Canterbury. Canterbury has been a city project that we're in partnership with Canterbury. We've got a little over $35 million into the project at this point through TIF funds, which means that we're building all of the infrastructure within Canterbury proper, so that all is city streets that are there. And we're currently working on the entertainment district. And you can see portions of that being developed now, and you will also see that right across from McDonald's, all of those barns and everything have been cleared out. That's where the entertainment district is going to be. It'll be coming off the side of the amphitheater, which will anchor that. And as we look at the amphitheater, this is a very special project. This is the next jewel in the crown. If you think about it, when it comes to entertainment, we got Valley Fair, we got Canterbury, we got Mystic, you know, we've got the Renaissance Fair. You know, we're the place where it's happening. We're the place where people come to have fun. Well, now we're going to have a state-of-the-art, Midwest finest amphitheater, almost 20,000 seats, where major acts, as opposed to going to the Target Center or going to, you know, a baseball field where there aren't, I mean, this place is designed for the acoustics for a concert. And we're excited that that's going to be a part of the next piece of our crowns and our crown jewels of entertainment here in Shakopee.
When does that open? Sorry to jump in.
It will open in May, June of 2025. If you haven't had the opportunity to go by and look, it's right across from the water tower. It's a huge facility, and it will be fun.
Can we get tours sometime? Just all of us?
Yes, at some point.
That'd be great. Thank you.
We're actually taking our council on a tour at the end of July, but I will make sure that happens. So we've got a lot of amenities that we've been working on as well, and this is just a list of them. But I like to say, hey, it's all for the kids, right? This is exactly, we have something in common yet again. I mean, a lot of this stuff, you know, playgrounds, but the one that I'm most proud about is the pedestrian bridge that we got with help from Senator Pratt and Representative Tabke, and the mountain bike course. That was something that, you know, Mike and I literally had a phone call about, and we're scratching our heads, and you know, we were able to work something out to put that, and that is a great mountain bike course. It's well used. We were able to get Excel Energy to the table to be a part of it as well. So it was literally a private, public partnership, and it's been wonderful. These are just some pictures. There's our pedestrian bridge. New Uber Park Playground, which will be underwater relatively shortly, so to be clear. New Lions Park pickleball courts for all those pickleballers out there. Yes, we're still building them. Scenic Heights, the fitness court off to the right is our newest addition to the Scenic Heights Park. That will be opened up next week, I think it is, or soon after that. So when we talk about all the things we got going on and we're talking about all the growth, this is the slide that should be most important to you. This is our future. This is what we just have in the pipeline now. I had a meeting this morning, and we're going to have more houses that are coming in. Land was just bought. Developers have already made the call. It's not even on this list. So even with just what we have on the list, we're looking at with just what we have in the pipeline of being over 53,000 people. And that's just using the Met Council's numbers. So
When that total estimated population, when is that? Like, how many years out?
I can't answer that. My planning director says by mid-2025 we should be there.
Wow.
Because these places are being built right now. Yeah, so that's an important piece of what I've come to tell you, that expect more people. We have challenges, we'll always have challenges, I think everybody understands that. I wanted to talk about one of our challenges that has become a success, and that's our fire department. You know, we had some serious problems in our fire department. We recognized that. We told the community that we were gonna fix them. This is the future of our fire department, and we are fixing it. I'm very proud of our new chief and our deputy chiefs that we have in place. We've transferred into a 24-hour system. We no longer have paid on call, volunteer, essentially. We have part-time employees, and we will continue. We've just hired 3 captains. We've hired a couple more full-time firefighters. We're redoing portions of fire station number 1 so we can have people, them actually do 24 hours and sleep. And then when the goes off, they can jump up and head to the thing. One of our problems, in the past. And, if I may, the district has had problems in the past where now it's the stellar, it really is a stellar organization that has done so much. And, I think it's important that we recognize what our past is and what our issues have been in the past and how we're committed to moving things forward.
May I interject there? It's timely. We did a large-scale reunification exercise last Thursday.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's folks in that photo that were there participating, but the efforts in the partnership, the collaborative efforts with Shakopee Fire Department, Shakopee PD, and lots of other area organizations, what we're learning from them is just amazing. We're incredibly appreciative to have partners like that in our community that are looking to be proactive, to figure things out, to do the best you can, to keep people safe and to plan for things. I think our exercise was a gas leak at one of the elementary schools, and how do we reunify? And my gosh, they were phenomenal to work with, so thank you.
Not like we've had any gas leaks or anything in the past, but. Now I get to brag a little bit. We are an award-winning city. Now, it hasn't been released yet, but on Thursday, for the second time in 5 years, we will be one of 5 cities in the state of Minnesota that will be recognized as a city of excellence by the League of Minnesota Cities. No other city has done that. In 5 years, we've been recognized twice. There's only 5 in the state that get it in 1 year. So that will be at the League of Minnesota Cities conference in Rochester, which I will be going to early tomorrow morning. But we literally have an incredible amount of hardworking, wonderful, talented people that work for our organization, and I like to brag about them whenever I can. But it's not only me bragging about them, it's others that are doing this. By the way, you'll also see here in the International City County Management Association, the which award is it? It is Voice of the People Award for Transformation and Safety. We won that in 2022. We are one of 10 cities in the nation that won the Voice of the People. We are a finalist again this year for that same award. So I'm excited about that. And much as you were talking earlier with Senator Pratt about the importance of local control, and literally it's all about innovation. If the state is telling us how to run our operations, we're not being innovative. If we're not being innovative, we're not finding ways to do things better, to save money doing them in different ways, and each city being its own laboratory where we can figure out what works best for us. Prior Lake and Shakopee are right next to each other. We are fundamentally different even though we're right next door. And that's what I try to tell people all the time when I'm testifying at the state, trying to fend off some of the actions of trying to make us all one. That we're not. Sure, if you think of us as a zoo, well, we're a zebra, and Prior Lake's a hippopotamus. No offense, Senator, it's the water jet.
Love all my communities equally.
That doesn't sound like a politician.
And this is I think important when I talk about innovation and talk about local control. This is a question I get all the time. Why can't we be more like a business? That actually is a pretty easy question to answer. wrong, go ahead. We're not a business. It's not what we do. We're not concerned about profit. We deliver public value. It's an innocuous thing. I'm gonna have to look up that word. I'm not sure what that means, but it's something that we can't put our finger on. But it is a value. It is something intrinsic. It's something that it makes people want to live here. It makes a community. It strengthens their fiber. That's what we do. And for me personally, when we are involved in a tax transaction, I'm reaching into your back pocket and I'm taking that money. You don't have a choice. That for me is a very moral thing. That means I've got to take only what I need. I've got to be able to spend that in the most efficient way I can, and I've got to be honest and upright about how I've spent that money. So that's what we will continue to operate from at the city. However, and this goes back to innovation, we must learn from business. Business is motivated by profit, so it's simply different, but they're the ones that are figuring out how to do things more efficiently, more effectively, and we've always got to be looking at business, and we always got to be grabbing onto those things that we know can help us in our business. I mean, you know, we both run essentially multi-million-dollar businesses. They're a little different. It's not the profit motive, but it's still important to understand that we have to keep our mind and look at those kinds of things to make ourselves better. And finally, how does someone navigate government bureaucracy? I'm the most anti-government bureaucracy bureaucrat you're ever going to meet. I've been in government a long time, my whole life in one way or the other. And I worked at the U.S. Senate for a while, for almost 10 years. And you know, when I was working there, I used to tell my people all the time that it doesn't matter what's on your plate. When someone calls with an issue, that's why we are here. It may not mean anything to you that someone, I work for the senator from Pennsylvania, that someone is calling you that's a little old lady from Philadelphia who hasn't received her Social Security check because the Social Security check has told her that she's dead. True story. You know, I'm not dead, I'm right here. No, you're dead. It says so. But it is the most important thing in her life. And that's why government exists, is to do everything we can to try to help those people in need. That's ultimately our role. And so we must always look towards that and understand that can you go ahead and hit the next slide? We have to be accountable. You must demand excellent customer service from us, and you must hold us accountable. Without that, you know, we're no different than a banana republic in South America. And if anybody's from South America, I apologize in advance. All right, that's my spiel. That's my contact information. If you have any questions, don't ever hesitate to ask. I will forward them immediately to my deputy so I don't have to answer them. But in all seriousness, thank you very much. And as always, thank you for everything that you do, and thanks for the strong partnership. And I'd be happy to take any questions. Or
I will ask you a question.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Last time we met was when they hired you. It has been a long time.
Yeah, it's
And
almost
I'm
10
happy
years.
to see you. You are energetic and strong. Thank you for coming and explaining, the great things happening in Shakopee. I'm very proud. A lot of good things.
Yeah, I'm exceptionally proud of this.
Yeah.
And it's because of our residents and everything that occurs. I mean,
My question is, amphitheater is good. I work a nonprofit about housing.
mm-hmm.
There is a housing issue, housing crisis. We were part of the 2050 plan for Met Council.
Yep.
They conducted like 30 interviews. We need, more, like the 4-bedroom or 3-bedroom. So can you tell me or tell us if there is a housing because we are growing, you know.
Yeah.
We are more diverse, you know. Family size is different, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And also, I remember the city has given go-ahead for the nonprofit Bacon, the fee.
Yep.
They were building like 30 to 40, right, housing, something. Did they start?
They have not started yet. I do not know when they will start.
Is there other housing?
Yeah, I mean, we have some of the housing that I had thrown up there. Some of it is affordable, some of it's not affordable.
Okay.
Some of it is luxury. You know, we try to do life cycle housing. We try to have a mix of everything. And, you know, if we have just one product, that will skew who wants to move here. And we very much want to be a welcoming community, and we very much want to have the one thing that we will not stand for, and that is it's all about management. And so we had an apartment building that's only 4 years old with terrible management. And that apartment building looked like it had been there for 40 years. There's trash everywhere. And you know, we basically said, you clean up your act or we're shutting you down. And the reason for that is think about those people that live in that environment. It's housing that is affordable housing, but you know what? If you're afraid to come out of your apartment, if you're afraid, you know, to walk down the stairs, if you live in an environment where there's trash and people don't appreciate what they have, that's not safe. And that's not something that we won't, I will not allow that to exist. We will take care of those issues, and we will make sure that, because those people don't have a voice, is the bottom line. So, thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may. First, thank you.
Sure.
Lots of information and all the great work you're doing. I became a Shakopee resident in 2000, and roughly in that 2000 to 2005 window, on a national level, Shakopee doubled in size,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And as we're hearing in the next, a year and a half or so, you know, rivaling some of our neighbors to the south. I grew up in the Mankato area, for example.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the current growth is manageable, sustainable, and you use that word manageable, just in terms of building permits and the like?
Yeah.
Where's the trajectory? And is it growing at a pace that's healthy?
Yeah, it is growing at a pace that's healthy. You know, every budget cycle, we're analyzing if we need to provide more services. So we just last year added 2 extra police officers. The year before that, we added a couple of public works department employees. So we're very comfortable with where we are. We do have a very robust permitting and building department. You know, they do a lot of work, as you can tell. You know, my inspectors are out every day. But we're very comfortable. I mean, this is what drives us. It's fun. It's, you know, you're not bored. You know, you coming in and you hear about, oh, this new company's coming in. We have 2 companies that we can't talk about yet, but one will take their base of operations. You know, they're in 5 different states currently, including California and Texas. They're going to make, they're a multinational. They're going to make Shakopee their North American headquarters. Everybody's coming here, and that hopefully will be able to be announced in a couple of weeks. We have another company that is on the very edge of innovation of, let me see how much I can say, of a scientific process that will revolutionize what we do with anything that has batteries. And we believe that they are going to choose Shakopee, and we're in the process of having conversations with them, another major corporation, another feather in Shakopee's hat. And then we can get ready to give away a big portion of that money, because that's how fiscal disparities is concerned, and we'll send some more over to Prior Lakes and say,
I just have one question. You didn't talk about, I don't think it's on this, or any of these slides, the gravel pit. What's
Oh,
happening
yeah.
with the gravel pit?
Yeah, hey, almost in the pipeline, but the gravel pit is gonna be 1,500 homes, which, not even on the slide. We're in partnership with our great partners at Shakopee Public Utilities, where they're going to put a water plant there. There will be a lighted sledding hill for the winter use, among other things. It's gonna be a very incredible development overall. But yeah, that will be, now, the only problem with, I shouldn't say problem, the only hurdle for that is that it has to be TIFed in order to be done, which is fine. People talk about TIF, which is a tax increment financing, which simply is, the property currently is worth this much. After development, it's gonna be worth this much. So we're gonna take this much for the next 10 years, let's say, and we're gonna use that into infrastructure. And then once that's over, then the property goes to be worth this much, okay? So it's a win-win all the way around. But that property has to be TIF because it's a big hole. And it's gotta be filled in, and there are multiple different communities in the metro area that have done exactly that, including Burnsville, Maple Grove, who have filled in their gravel pits and then developed them. That's gonna be an awesome, another awesome development.
Yeah, I wondered how you were gonna fill that in, or how long it was gonna take to fill that in, because I live.
Well, I'm not doing it because I don't have a shovel that big,
I was
so.
gonna say,
It's gonna be a lot of
But
dirt.
now,
And it's a big hole.
it is.
You don't know it when you drive by because it's got that berm, but it's a big hole. It's 80 feet deep.
Wow.
So,
Just related to growth, well, first of all, thank you again for being here. It's related to growth, and it's a personal question, so.
I can't lower your taxes.
Maybe I shouldn't even kick this anthill, but we've gone from, 10,000 people before the Bloomington Ferry Bridge went in, up to 50,000. Is it time to look at a bigger city council to serve that many people?
Oh, I'm not.
Expand the size of it? You're maybe not the one to answer this.
I'm not the person to ask. I work with whatever system is in place.
Well said.
I just have a quick comment. Can I steal your line about the taking tax money and making it higher moral responsibility?
Yeah, because I'm sure I stole it to begin with.
I just love it, and we really, because we do take people's money, and we have to be very responsible with it. And frankly, we should say this to anybody, sorry, Senator Pratt, who's an elected official, and make sure that they know this and live by it, because it's our money and it should be used responsibly.
I meet with every new employee that comes into the city. I talk about two things, ethics and customer service. On the ethics part, we talk about exactly that. And they all understand that, we do have that moral responsibility because it is an involuntary transaction. Well, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your partnership and lots of things. And I know you mentioned the academies. This is one of those, it's not in his job description anywhere. But you want somebody who's out, who's lived the experience of the academies, who then sells it to other potential members. That's Bill. And then usually when he starts doing that, I just get out of the way because he takes care of it. But he truly, when he talks about that, it comes from a great place, and it is something that he lives, day in and day out. And the idea that all of us together in partnership, we're all successful together. And so I appreciate the efforts of Bill and everybody else at the city of Shakopee. So thank you. Thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure. In your next meeting, my deputy will be here to tell you about all the things I wasn't correct.
Yeah.
That's her role, so.
It's awesome.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Next on our agenda is item 8.1, the Takata Learning Center lease renewal. And here to present are Bill Manazzi, Director of Finance and Operations, and Corey Whitbeck, the Tatanka Real Estate Advisor.
Good
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Redmond. My role in this is simply to introduce Corey, who is going to go over some information related to Takata Learning Center. In your school board packet and up on the screen, you'll see a summary that was put together, and I believe Corey is planning to review some of the information related to that renewal.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. Just a quick recap. Takata has been here in Shakopee Town Square for a number of years, and our lease is up next year in July of 2025, and we have the ability to renew the lease. And so there were some discussions amongst with the superintendent and some of the other facilities team about, what does that look like and what are our space needs. And I think generally speaking, the space, still works very well in terms of serving the students. With a couple of caveats, it has been here for a while and it's been heavily used. And if you walk through it, you can see it's probably time to get a refresh of some things, just some very basic items like carpet and paint. And so we had some discussions with the landlord about whether or not we look to just simply do a 3-year renewal, which we could have exercised and got no money from the landlord to do any work to the space. So basically the district would have had to come out of pocket to make any improvements to the space. And so once we all agreed that the space seemed to be working well, it seemed to make sense to have a discussion about maybe a longer lease term. And so we explored doing a 5-year lease with the building, really in exchange for getting an improvement allowance from the landlord. And so that's what you see on the board is essentially a summary of the terms that we have agreed to, subject to everyone's approvals here, that we thought was a very reasonable deal. And just real quick, again, it's a 5-year lease. I'll skip the next point, but the rent would be $8 per square foot. And just to give you some perspective, rents in Shakopee for office space are about $15 to $18.50 a foot. Retail is about $16 to $20 a foot. And just simple bare bones warehouse space is $5.50 to $7 per square foot. And what we're talking about is paying is $8 a foot. So I think it's a very good deal, very cost effective, particularly given that it's not warehouse space, right? It's highly improved space that works, that is designed and built, to serve the students. And so the point that I jumped over was we also have the right to terminate. And so we felt good about making this trade of doing a 5-year lease and getting money from the landlord, where the landlord is going to essentially cover the cost of carpet and paint the space. And knowing that we also had the right to terminate every year. It's just something that has always been in the lease and part of the leases that we have here in the event that the board doesn't approve dollars to go to it. So it's a pretty simple transaction. Again, it's the same space we've always had. I don't know if you want me to mention the bridge space at all.
Sure.
There's so in addition to the 12,000 feet of Takata space, there was some neighboring space that had been sitting empty, and so Takata leases that space. Essentially, it's 5,000 feet. We pay for even further discounted rent at $7 gross, or that's what's proposed, $7 gross on 2,500 square feet. So we're essentially paying about 75% of the rent on half the space while we're using all the space, for the most part.
And that has, and we talked about this at facilities and finance, correct me if I've got this wrong, but that has a little bit different kind of rental conditions where, we could leave at any time or they could kick us out, or, we think if they found a new tenant or a possible tenant, they would probably come to us and want maybe a more formal agreement. But for right now, we're continuing to use it, and it's advantageous at that price.
Yeah, that's right, heavily discounted and different. It's not an annual termination. It requires some notice, and either party has the right to terminate. So if we ever decide we don't want to use it, we can get it back, and there's a risk that the landlord may want to take it back. That's probably less likely. I mean, I think if they're going to lease space, it's most likely going to be the space in the front end of the mall where the storefronts are. The space in the back is a little bit less desirable, just typically, which is why they'd agreed to, to do this kind of arrangement where we're paying a low rent on half the space. Does anyone have any questions?
Just for clarification, it's the net rent at $8 per square foot plus
Yeah.
the taxes. Do you know approximately what per square foot that adds on? Because usually the CAM costs are somewhere around the same as the net rent, but I just want to.
Yeah, and I think they're 4 and some change. Yeah, so around 5 plus utilities, right? So is it 4 and then plus?
Both 5 is what I budgeted.
So
Between the two, it's 8 plus 5, so it's 13. Which is, okay.
Yeah, and that's actually quite a bit lower. I mean, a typical build, but you're also doing some of your own cleaning and things like that. So typical office space, you're going to see probably 10 in CAM charges.
It's
right?
usually the same as the rent, around, give or take a buck or two, which is what this is.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's good that it's lower than that.
That's right. It's yeah.
Okay.
That's advantageous as well.
I have a question. How old is this facility, or this building? It's been here as long as I can ever remember, even as a young child coming to the cities on the old,
Yeah.
whatever road it used to be called, 169, I guess.
Yeah. I don't recall, to be honest with you. I can get that answer. I don't recall how old it is, but obviously over time it showed its age. And the ownership had some financial challenges along the way. But along with that, I think there has been some patience by the district in terms of just knowing that we're getting, really very favorable rents, and with that came some problems, but both with the district office lease and the Takata lease, we've had some requirements that the landlord do certain things. I don't know if you recall, but replace the ceiling, or the roof, HVAC systems, some parking lot. So those types of things, have continued to occur. And we've talked briefly about that. I think that's all a good sign. In that, I think the owner is, turned the corner on some of the financial challenges that they've had, and for the most part, they've stepped to the plate with the things that we required as kind of being the bare minimum. But when we had the rain damage here, I recognize this is a different lease than the Takata lease, but same owner, same potential issues. There's all new carpet and paint replaced here because of the water damage, which I think was, that was out of their pocket. They didn't even file an insurance claim. So to me, yes, it's an older building, but we're paying a lot lower rents because of that, and we're seeing some improvement in terms of how they manage and operate the center. And I think they're cautiously optimistic. They're very excited about the pickleball, and so they're hopeful that they'll continue to see more leasing here in the retail portion of the center.
So, and we've talked at the finance facilities meeting too, why the Takata Learning Center is such a unique space for the students that it serves, and that there really isn't alternate space available, in other district buildings. Just a swag, what would it cost to build or require equivalent space?
Yeah.
And again, just a rough estimate, because just to weigh the cost to acquire a building relative to this.
Maybe $6 to $8 million bucks.
Right.
To get a building. You can go out and buy a building, but we all know that to make it a school building, we've looked at this at Central. We've looked at this. We've had these exercises, and so. So the good news is that money was spent on the front end when we did the initial lease, and once that was done, we went back down to these discounted rents, right? Because the landlord helped fund those initial improvements. So that's right. So alternatives to either buy or build, you could probably lease this for a couple of decades and still be ahead as opposed to going out and building something.
Right, and that's exactly the spirit of the question is what would be that return on that investment over time? So seems like a good value.
Yeah. I live here. I have kids go to school. I pay taxes too, and I wouldn't be recommending this if I didn't think it was fiscally the right decision for the school.
Yeah, thank you.
The mall was built in 1973.
Oh, 1973.
Great year.
So this is an action item, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Aldrich and a second by Peterson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Next on our agenda is item 8.2. This is a resolution, community education census resolution. With us to present is Lisa Ron, our Director of Community Education.
Thanks, good evening. Thank you, members of the board, for allowing me to present this to you, which comes at a timely manner since we were just talking about the population of Shakopee. We did this last year where I brought this to the board. There's a census update. The state demographer has determined that the population in Shakopee is, for this upcoming year, is increasing from 50,562 to 51,639. And so those are numbers straight from the demographer's department. And so I'm bringing this to the board because there's advantages for funding for community education with the possible, and other areas with the population increase.
Is it worth clarifying the difference between the population of the school district and just Shakopee itself? Or are they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the population, this would be school district population only. So there would be I believe we have townships in our school district, maybe Mike can answer that, but, and it includes those areas as well, not just the city of Shakopee.
So the areas in Savage and Prior Lake that are
Yes,
part of it.
correct. Yep.
All right, so this is a resolution, so this will be a roll call vote. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Need a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So moved.
I'll need a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Actually, we have a
Oh,
motion by
sorry.
Brophy.
But you
You
can
said
say
second, so.
I said so moved,
Oh.
but you can be
Sorry.
second.
No,
I'll let you
I-
and Joe do rock, paper, scissors. How's that?
No, I don't care. You just need to make sure you
All right,
motion is
so a
second.
motion by Brophy, a second by Peterson.
I think it's right now.
Now we can do the roll.
Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Brophy,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Johnson, Mohammed,
Yes.
Valdez.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Resolution passes. Thank you, Lisa. Over here, I'll have this down down. Next on our agenda is an information item, item 9.1, budget update, and here to present is Bill Benazzi, our Director of Finance and Operations. Welcome, Bill.
Good evening. On the screen, you will see the general fund budget update now as of May 31st. So our last budget update until the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. So a brief agenda item for you. I'll just review some of the details again by way of orientation. The green highlighted column is our revised budget. The 23-24 received YTD, that stands for year to date, is what we've received on both the revenue side and the expenditure side. The budget less the received gives you your budget remaining. And then most importantly, the three percentages, the percent that we've received or spent in the current year compared to prior year and second prior year is really your barometer for how we're doing compared to the prior and second prior year. So in total, on the revenue side, we have collected 97.7% of our general fund budget of $118.9 million compared to 87.6% the prior year and 101.3% the second prior year. A couple of items of note. Some of these are repeats carry forward from months previous. First, on the property tax line, similar to prior years, what we do in finance is when those property tax payments come in, I record those during the year to the general fund, which is what you see here and why we're 130% collected. We have not really collected 130% of the revenue in the general fund for property taxes. all of the taxes, whether it's general fund, debt service fund, or community services fund, is collected right now in the general fund. We get past June 30th, and then I go in and do a journal entry to allocate property tax revenue to the debt service fund and community service fund. Otherwise, Lisa would be very, very upset if we didn't give any of the property tax money to community service. And then under the local line, as a reminder, that does include the revenue from the Central Family Center sale. That seems increasingly long ago, but that is still in this fiscal year and it's included in there. And then also some positive variances in our interest revenue. So that continues to grow and show a positive direction for 23-24 year. Under the expenditure side, you'll see under salary and wages, we're significantly above where we were in the prior and second prior year. And the reason has to do with the number of payrolls this year. So May 31st was the payroll date, and so we have incurred, as of the end of May, 21 of our 26 payrolls in the current year. And in the prior and second prior year, we're looking at 20 payrolls, right? So one additional payroll in the current year is attributed to that increase in percentage. So I don't foresee that as a budget variance on the negative side for wages and benefits. Rather, it's just one additional payroll this year when compared to last year in the second prior year. And then a question was brought up regarding the role for equipment. And really the equipment is a little bit misleading. That's the object description, but where we've only spent 68% of our budget this year, that's really timing related for LTFM projects. So we've talked about our LTFM plan. Some of those expenses incur in June, some come through in July and August, and it's really sort of a guessing game in terms of when we get those projects started and when the payments come through. So that's really creating the budget variance there for equipment. So as I mentioned, where we go from here, we will finish the fiscal year after this month here in June. We'll have auditors out in July and then again in September. I'll have a pretty good idea of what our preliminary results are by the first part of October, and then auditors will be in November to present the audit results for the 23-24 year. That's all I had from a budget report. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is an action item, item 10.1, the LTFM 10-year plan, and Bill is here to present again, and bringing guests with him.
Yes, I'd like to invite the more important group here. I'll wait till I get up here. So I'll sort of kick things off, but just by way of introduction, Ben Berry from Wold Architects and Engineers is here, as well as Ed Zinette, our manager of buildings and grounds. So appreciate them attending our meeting tonight to go over what is an annual process. LTFM stands for long-term facilities maintenance. So if you hear us use that acronym, that's just a mouthful to say long-term facilities maintenance every time. So it's LTFM, an annual process whereby we ask the board to approve a resolution. There's a statement of assurances. The bulk of our time tonight will be spent on Ben's presentation of what our LTFM planning or spending plan is, and then there's also a 10-year expenditure spreadsheet and a 10-year revenue spreadsheet. As I mentioned, it's an annual plan whereby we lay out our spending for areas of deferred maintenance, health and safety, and disabled accessibility under that LTFM plan. And the one item I'll make mention of before we turn it over to Ben and Ed is the use of this money. So this is, as Senator Pratt mentioned, this is some of the categorical funding that can be used for deferred maintenance, health and safety, and disabled accessibility. It cannot be used for classroom needs in terms of personnel and that type of stuff. So very important set aside of money to use for maintenance needs around our schools. So with that, I'll turn that over to Ben.
Great, well thanks for having me. Good to see you all again. As Bill mentioned, why are we here? Annual process. You have to go through all these steps to receive the funding. All the items listed here are the attachments on the agenda. Again, LTFM, it was established in 2015. Bill mentioned the allowable expenditures. I think I'll just add on to that. It's also a restricted fund, so it doesn't allow you to do new construction with the funding. It's really about asset preservation, or it's about maintenance of what you currently have. This year, you can see projected revenue of 1.5 million, you have a projected fund balance of about another 1.5 million. And then the planned expenditures in FY25, the first 4 items, salary, inspections, interior services, mechanical systems, those are allowances that allow you to provide a budget to accomplish items that pop up over the course of the year. So an example I give is, let's say there's a valve leaking somewhere, there's 61,500 set aside to allow Ed to go get and take care of that quickly. So the first 4 are allowances. Again, if they're not spent, they will carry over as part of the fund balance. The larger project identified is East Middle School toilet renovation project. She allocated about $1 million to renovate the toilet rooms. Those were identified. They are aged. I think it's been at least 20 years. It might actually be 30 years, but it's at least 20 years since they've been renovated. So they are just have lots of wear to them that needs to be addressed. But then in addition, as we do that, we'll bring it up to current accessibility code, thus being a qualifying LTFM expense, both under maintenance of your current assets, but also bringing up to current accessibility code. So when we complete FY25, the estimated kind of remaining fund balance will be about 1.4 million, or pretty close to where you're starting the year. And this decision isn't made in a vacuum, or it's the project that Ed and I picked and said this is the one we should do. There is a comprehensive facility audit of your buildings that lists all identified maintenance items that's updated annually. So as new items pop up, or as things reach a certain age, we update that annually. And we also this year went and met with all the buildings and all the head custodians at every facility and made sure that that list of facility maintenance matched up to their priorities in the buildings. And so this is a reflection of both where your recent investments have been in recent history. So you can see that's the blue arrows is where recent investments on facility maintenance have been. The projects are on the angle there. So like, for example, Red Oak is having the carpet replaced this summer, so the carpet getting completed at Red Oak. But then we're also identifying and tracking kind of those top needs that are identified through the facility audit and also in meetings with the buildings. So as we continue into the future, we can continue to have these items identified, be part of the discussion. As I mentioned, highlighted here, East toilet rooms, and that was really selected based certainly on condition, but also we want to be equitable in this funding source and making sure it's being spread across your facilities and your square footage. We wouldn't want to see all of it go to one building consistently. We want to make sure it's spread across. As you can see, East doesn't have that arrow there, so it made sense based on kind of the age and where investment has been to take this time to invest in it. Any questions I can answer about LTFM plan? Again, so tonight, what you'll be voting on then is it is the resolution, the 10-year plan, and the 10-year expenditure plan, as well as a statement of assurances, all required by Minnesota Department of Education.
I have one question. The paging system,
Yeah.
is that considered a tech expense, or is that considered an LTFM? And is it better to be in one or the other from where the dollars come from?
Yes, good. Thanks for clarifying. So this list actually is tracking top building needs. It is not necessarily tracking top LTFM qualifying needs. There might be the serving line at Sweeney is another example. Identified as a top need, but actually wouldn't qualify as LTFM because you have one serving line, but you can't add a second with LTFM funds. So this is about tracking top needs, not necessarily top LTFM projects, and the paging system in and of itself technology items are typically not covered military fire.
I didn't think so, which is why I asked.
Motions? Entertain a motion. This is a resolution we'll be voting on.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
So we have a motion by Valdez and a second by Brophy. Any further questions or comments? Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Brophy,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Johnson, Mohammed,
Yes.
Valdez.
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is another action item, item 10.2. It's the consideration to approve the fiscal 25 budget, and Bill is here to present again.
Okay. Just the one that says presentation. Thank you. So there's three attachments on the online version of the agenda. The first one is just simply a cover page. Tiffany has on the screen, thank you for doing that, the presentation, and then the full budget executive summary is also included in the agenda as well. And I believe there's a presentation, or there's budget summaries at your place as well. So we should have our bases covered in terms of all budget all the time. Just by way of review, our Finance and Facilities Committee had a chance to review this budget at the June 3rd meeting. They also had a chance to review the budget in summary form again tonight. The school board as a whole had a chance to review this for discussion on the June 3rd meeting. There have been no changes to this budget since the one that you saw on June 3rd. And so we're bringing this forward tonight and recommending it for school board approval in accordance with Minnesota Statute 123B77, which states that the school board should approve a budget before the start of the year on July 1st. And so really what I have here is an abbreviated version that I'd like to go through, not meant to be all-encompassing by any means, but I'd just like to review some of the highlights of the budget before seeking approval. And the first one, realize that's really small on the screen, that's my fault, is enrollment and budgetary decisions. In our school district, seek to support our mission of educating lifelong learners to succeed in a diverse world. That's really our way in our finance department of supporting the strategic direction of the school district with funding. And we take that job very, very seriously in our finance department. Our major budget assumptions in this budget, as you see in the bullet points, our operating levy, as we all know, is tied to inflation. Our operating levy authority is $1338.02 per pupil for taxes payable in 2024, district revenue in 2025. State aid per pupil, which, as we know, state aid is the main funding for the educational experience in the general fund. Increase for our next year is 2%. The formula allowance for next year is $7,281, and I'll get into a little bit later what that actually means in real dollars in the state aid formula allowance year over year, or lack thereof. Decrease in interest revenue with expected interest rate decrease in 24-25. The one-time pandemic relief funds decreased down to zero. The expiration of the one-time pandemic relief funds at the end of next year, that federal budget goes to zero for next year. Budget enrollment projection of 7,430 students, a decrease of 203 students or 2.7% from this year's projections. And then enrollment adjusted staffing of a -7 FTE for next year. That's enrollment, or that's staffing needed to keep our class sizes the same next year or similar next year compared to this year. Go on to the next page, which really shows our fund balance projection. So this is sort of a financial snapshot, if you will. So the main point of emphasis that I'd like to get across is that top row. Our unassigned fund balance is projected to end next year as of June 30, 2025 at $12,311,000, 10%. 10% is right in the middle of our the mid-range of the school board fund balance policy that states that we'll strive to maintain a fund balance between 8 and 12%, 10% obviously right in the middle of that. You can see under our restricted categories, LTFM funding is forecast to be relatively flat. Operating capital is forecast to have a decrease of just over $1 million. That's a planned spend down related to our curriculum adoption. So some work being done in our LT&E, Learning, Teaching, and Equity Department for some curriculum adoption, budgeted to come out of that operating capital account. Our capital projects levy is forecast to be relatively flat, building fund balance by about $26,000. And then down under assigned for district programming, we are projected to utilize about $725,000 of that assignment for district programming, moved up to the unassigned in order to keep that fund balance at 10% as of June of 2025. And then you can see under our non-major funds, food service fund, our community service fund, building construction fund, the $518,000 spend in the deficit spend in the construction fund is the continued spend down of the LTFM bond. So that's bond proceeds that we've collected in a previous year, and we're no longer collecting the revenue. We're just spending that down to zero, that fund balance. And so you would expect that to be in a deficit position. And then our debt service fund, that's just our principal and interest bond payment schedule as well. And so on the bottom of the page, before I flip to the next page, you'll see that our total revenue that we're bringing forward tonight, recommending for approval for all funds combined, is $161.9 million, and our total expenditures are $163.8 million. So obviously, all funds combined, north of $160 million. That's a very large organization and a very large budget that you're being asked to take approval on, or approve tonight. Going to the next page, we've touched on this quite a bit, so I won't get into a great detail about it, but we do have an enrollment committee that meets monthly to ensure there's alignment between enrollment for staffing, enrollment for budget, and what we're submitting in what's known as MARS, our student accounting submissions. And you can see where our enrollment history has been, and next year I mentioned our enrollment projections of 7,430 ADM, a decrease of 203 from this year. Going to the next page, skipping from enrollment history to enrollment projections, it's important that we develop enrollment assumptions. So that's what you see in letters A through E. We've developed the following enrollment assumptions for next year. The first one is related to kindergarten. So kindergarten held constant at our projection of 433 students moving forward, and you can see that down under the kindergarten row. Letter B, kindergarten through grade 8 rolled forward. This year's kindergartners become next year's first graders, and so on and so forth. Letter C, we've assumed an increase of 49 students from grade 8 to grade 9, primarily driven by an increase in Shakopee area Catholic school students from grade 8 joining our high school enrollment in grade 9. Post-secondary enrollment option, PSEO estimate of 60 students, and then early childhood and tuition estimates based on a 5-year history. And so developing those assumptions allows us to build enrollment projections. And you can see those enrollment projections for fiscal 25 through fiscal 29. We're projected to be a period of declining enrollment. And that is almost entirely driven by decrease in birth rates in Scott County, and those fewer class sizes working their way through our school system. So obviously that creates some budget challenges moving forward. It's something that we're aware of, and we'll continue to monitor and make this a big part of what we do, is monitoring our student enrollment and bringing you updates periodically. Shifting now to the financial, in a snapshot of our revenue and expenditure pie chart for all the funds, and you can see by far and away our general fund is our largest fund on the revenue side, and the expense side accounting for about 3/4 of our total budget, all funds combined. Our food service fund accounts for about 3%. Our community service fund is roughly 2% of our budget. Our building fund is much smaller. That's our spend down of our LTFM bond. Our debt service fund is between 11 and 12% of our total budget. And then our internal service fund, which is our self-funded health and dental accounts, are in the 7% range. And then lastly, getting to some revenue and expenditure assumptions. First on in the general fund on the revenue side, I mentioned state aid. The primary increase in state aid is related to an increase in special education aid and English language learner revenue as a component of basic skills. But in the chart that you see on the screen, I mentioned at the beginning that we are scheduled to receive 2% increase in the state aid formula allowance. And so how this chart reads is the state aid formula allowance this year is $7,138 per pupil unit. A 2% increase increases that state aid formula allowance to $7,281 per pupil. But given our decrease of 203 students in the corresponding pupil units, you can actually see that that 2% increase from the state is actually a decrease for us in our state aid revenue of about $336,000. So obviously when the state aid general education formula allowance is the main education funding for the general fund, and our increase is actually a negative number year over year, that really does create some budget challenges and underscores some of the comments that were made earlier related to the importance of that state aid formula allowance funding. Under property tax revenue, our property tax revenue is going up, almost entirely attributed to the net tax capacity. So as we've talked about previously, our capital projects levy is tied to the net tax capacity. We continue to see healthy increases in the net tax capacity, and the property tax increases is related to that. Federal sources, I touched on that, are decreasing sharply as a result of the expiration of the pandemic funds. And then our local revenue is actually decreasing slightly as well, driven by a decrease in our interest revenue projection. Skipping to the next page, our expenditure assumptions. Our total expenditures are projected to go up by 3.6%. And you can see the overview of the different buckets of our general fund expenditures. By far and away, our largest bucket is our salary, wages, and employee benefits. That accounts for about $96.5 million of our total budget in the general fund. And that increase in salary, wages, and benefits is just about 5.26%. You can see the status of our employee contracts, and as often the case with the adopted budget, this is already outdated. At that time, the Shakopee Education Association contract was still being negotiated. That contract has been settled, and so I'll update that chart in the revised budget to read settled. And then we have different categories of our general fund under purchase services, supplies and equipment, and other expenditures, and you can read the detail in that as well. And then lastly, under acknowledgements, we started this budget process as we do every year, way back last winter, by identifying our enrollment assumptions, revenue and expenditure assumptions, and scenarios and options related to next year's budget. This budget at this point has been reviewed by school district administration, our Citizens Finance Advisory Committee, the School Board Finance and Facilities Committee, and this board as well. And with all of that, we are bringing forward a grand total budgeted revenues on the revenue side of $161,987,212 and grand total budgeted expenditures of $163,864,348. That's the end of the presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions if you have.
Joe? Why are you laughing at that? I have a few questions. There's nowhere in the budget that actually shows what the cost per student is per year and has been for the last several years, is there? Or did I just miss it?
No, and that's a really good point. That's included as part of our annual audit presentation, but I have not historically included that as part of the executive summary.
That's something I'd love to see on there, because I know that it's part of the audit. It's just an interesting question. So when Bill Reynolds was in here, he said that the Shakopee population is going to increase by 8,000 people. It's amazing that none of them are students. Isn't it?
Yeah. Is it just unknown? We don't.
I mean, obviously it's unknown. We don't know who these 8,000 people are.
Yeah.
But you look at the projections going forward, it's like, if some of these people have kids, that would help. So please start having children.
I think it's a really good, and thank you for bringing that up. I should have mentioned this. Our enrollment assumptions are related to that, to your comment. Especially related to kindergarten through grade 8, just moving forward. We don't have a growth formula built in, knowing that we want to make sure we build a revenue budget based off of enrollment and then come in at or under.
I know why we do it.
That budget, and so it's a really good point.
Because it would be like, oh, 8,000 people coming in, 1,200 of them are students. We don't want to do that. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, and I know you know this, but that's part of, as we've grappled with this, and you're going back a few years now, you're kind of going, right, there was a pandemic, was that it? No, that wasn't, that obviously might have played a role. But it's still, and it took a long time to kind of grasp that, but for not the continued development, our declining enrollment would be even deeper than it currently is. And that's a hard, but yes, it is a good sign, and we saw, and we do, and we work with the city, constantly kind of, hey, what are developments, what's happening, but it truly is, and sometimes I'm a little flippant in saying, the average size and price of, residents in our district has increased, and there's more of them, there's fewer kids living in, many of them, and that's just kind of the math of that, and so we'll see when or if that turns around or changes, but having that development is certainly offset what would have been even greater, reductions in enrollment, or decreases, I should say, in enrollment.
It's just one of those things that you just look at and you're like, hopefully our dire predictions, I don't know if dire is the right word, but I used it anyway, don't come true, and we don't lose as many students because there's.
Yeah. Well, we don't know for sure. We think we're close to the bottom in terms of those low kindergarten numbers, but we continue to do research. We continue to see things. I'm kind of pointing at Jim. We knew that this isn't a Shakopee thing. It's across the state of Minnesota, almost every school district. It's across the United States, and we even had an article recently across the world.
Yeah, there's a global dip in population, which hasn't happened since the Black Plague, apparently. I just looked it up. We have 52 students registered for kindergarten who are not in our census, which means they've moved here in some form or fashion since they were born. Now, they're not all in new housing, but looking at where those kindergartners are registered to attend kindergarten, it would be consistent with neighborhoods that are, or some of our schools that have more of the new construction. So I think, to Mike's point, if we didn't have the new construction, this decrease in enrollment would be even more significant. And
Sure.
I think we continue to capture students at a rate higher than the state level, meaning we are keeping our students in district. It's not that we're losing them here or losing them there. We have the standard outflow to the local private schools. We have the standard outflow to communities where people work, et cetera, but nothing staggering. I mean, it's just that the reality is we don't have the same number of babies being born in Shakopee right now. And again, hopefully these new houses will help to turn that.
Children are a wonderful thing. That being said, the budget projection of 10% in the unrestricted fund balance is, a little bit lower than what, just percentages, or tenths of percentages lower than last year. And Christy and I have been on the board when it was at a lot lower than that. 2%, 1%?
1.7, 1.9, I think.
Yeah, and to see the unrestricted fund balance at where it needs to be for consecutive years, and then hopefully going forward, is just a remarkable accomplishment for the entire district.
I just have a couple of comments. I think, as I said earlier, the state and the additional dollars on the formula for each student, extremely critical that they give us more than the 2%. And what is on page 11, every single number is 2% with the exception of two. One was 2.5% and then just last year the 4%. And I know that it doesn't just impact Shakopee, it's every school district in the state needs that additional more than 2% in funding. So that's number one. That's going to be extremely critical from an advocacy standpoint all the way around for everybody in our community and our district to work with our representatives and our senator to make sure that our schools are remembered when it comes to setting those budgets for next year, or for the next biennium, I should say. And the second comment was going to be, but you were talking about birth rates, and this isn't just a Shakopee or a Minnesota thing. I was with a bunch of school board members from across the U.S. The last 3 days, and it's something that was brought up as well, that a lot of districts are seeing that in other states as well. So we're not alone. Minnesota's not alone.
Any other questions or comments?
Just kudos, Bill, to you and your team. We talked about transparency, Mr. Reynolds talked about it, like the due diligence and the efforts to present this to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if nobody else has any comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 adopted budget.
We have a motion by Aldrich and a second by Peterson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bill. And I know you've got the next two items, so do you need a break? Are you?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for the offer.
All right, item 10.3, this is a resolution. This is the LTFM resolution for Southwest Metro, our intermediate school district, and Bill is going to present again.
Fear not, the next two agenda items will be much shorter. These are recurring items along with our LTFM for Shakopee schools. Each year in June, the school board is asked to approve resolutions for LTFM and also for safe schools related to our intermediate district 288. Intermediate district, all intermediate districts, but specifically 288 is what we're talking about now. They do not have a tax base for levy purposes. However, they have needs, just like regular school districts do, for LTFM, lease levy, and safe schools levy, important funding for the school districts. So, as such, intermediate districts are authorized to pass along those levy dollars to their member districts in accordance with our utilization. And you can see in the packet, our utilization this year as a member of Intermediate 288 is 25.77%. And so based off of that, our levy amount for LTFM, lease levy, and safe schools is about $216,000. Just a small increase from last year based off of a slight increase in utilization. Specifically related to this agenda item, which is our LTFM resolution for Southwest Metro. The LTFM levy for Shakopee for Southwest Metro will be $39,182.27, 25.77% of the Southwest Metro total, which is $152,000. With that, we'd recommend approval, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
So this was, I'm new on the Finance LTFM maintenance committee, so this is a question I asked there, so I just put it out for people's knowledge. So our contribution to this is based on our usage, so it's not based on enrollment of the member districts, it's based on usage, so that's where that number comes from.
That's exactly right. Yep, our utilization is 25.77% of their total.
So this is a resolution, so I entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Aldrich and a second by Mohammed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Brophy,
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Johnson? Mohammed?
Yes.
Valdez?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is another resolution, item 10.4, Safe Schools Resolution for Southwest Metro. And we have Bill to present again.
An even shorter agenda item, our portion again for safe schools for Southwest Metro, based on our utilization is $57,820.67. Last year was $53,000 and some change, so an increase of about $4,000 related to Southwest Metro Safe Schools Levy. Recommend approval.
And so, yeah, I'm just reading that sentence there. So it includes the cost of an SRO, safety equipment, non-instructional technology hardware. So that's what this is paying for.
Exactly, yes, thank you for the clarification.
I gotta make the motion.
I'll second.
The motion by Mohammed and a second by Valdez. Any further discussion? This is a resolution. Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Brophy?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Aldrich?
Yes.
Johnson? Mohammed?
Yes.
Valdez?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Are you done?
I think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
It's a
you.
long night.
Still enjoy it.
Next on our agenda is an information item, item 11.1, the 2024 community conversation results. And here to present is Tiffany Olson, our Director of Communications and Strategic Development.
All right. I am very excited to share this information with everyone here today. We could talk for hours about this, and aside the fact that it's almost 8, we do want to be conscious of the time that's on the agenda here. So there are some items that I will go through perhaps quicker than others. And an important item I want to call your attention to that's in front of you printed and also in your board packets is the brief. This is a 2-page overview that will summarize many of the items that I will highlight here. And if I go over anything too fast here, feel free to ask any questions, or we can discuss it further in a development session in the future. But tonight, we're going to go over the results that we have, also the goals when we initiated this community exchange and conversation, and also some action and next steps. And that board brief mentioned is in here as well. This is a revisit of information that we shared in the past. I think it's pretty clear of why we host a community conversation, and very grateful that the board makes sure that this is something that's a consistent priority. That speaks to the survey history that we do have here as well. This is our second year using Thought Exchange, and it's our second consecutive year being able to get ongoing feedback, which helps our longitudinal data. And then we have relevant pre and post-COVID data as well, if you will, with other school-related events that occurred with some of the history that you see in front of you here. This is just mindset, just remember where we've been and where we are today. Planning occurred in spring of the school year that is now over, and May 1st through May 24th is when we conducted this community conversation so that we could have ample time to get as much feedback as possible. And we've spent some time internally reviewing everything we're presenting today. So first thing to bring up is national benchmark. There's the 55th annual PDK. And the PDK Phi Delta Kappan survey is something that's been around for the 55 years, I can't talk right now, about public attitudes towards public schools. And there has been a longitudinal data component that, interestingly enough, this year was not included in the same capacity that it has in previous years. This PDK poll usually was a benchmark for us when it came to grading performance of various leadership areas, so school board, superintendent, overall, view of public schools, things of that nature. They did shift for the 2023 PDK poll to focus on key topics, and you'll see them highlighted on this slide here when it comes to alternative school schedules, different community expectations and values of teachers, mental health, and also the overall discussion of curriculum. There are about 1,000 individuals, give or take. You'll see at the bottom there the statistical component. But what I can say at a very high level, and you'll see it as we go through the brief highlights here, a lot of the topics brought up by our community do align with the topics that were brought up through PDK, but you will not see that longitudinal data when we get to some of the grading components from this survey. So we're gonna dive right in. We're gonna dive right into our participants. So a lot of data to look up on there, and again, I'm gonna go relatively fast and try to pull out the high points for you, but please, Sheriff Smith and others, feel free to stop me if I go too fast. But I'm actually gonna start from the bottom bullet up and say that while engagement and awareness remained, above average, it was relatively flat as far as how many we had participate, things of that nature, but that is still very healthy, because I think sometimes when you say relatively flat, that sounds negative. We still have very, very healthy numbers. You can see that we did increase the number of participants. If you're trying to break down what's on here, there's obviously there's various stages of this exchange and survey where folks can participate. So we had 58% complete the full 20-question close-ended survey, and we had 603 individuals provided open-ended feedback, and an individual on average rated about 14 other thoughts. So they looked at about 14 other feedback opportunities provided by their peers, and overall about 23 thoughts were rated on average. And a stat that we are definitely excited to keep growing is that we did see an increase in respondents that chose to take the exchange in Spanish. That does not mean that is the only, that those are the only individuals that can speak Spanish, but they chose to use the translate feature in Spanish. So 31 respondents this year relative to much less in the previous year. So that is something that we want to make sure we can see increase. Community breakdown. Overall, if you're looking at the left to right here, 2024, you'll see this on various slides to just give you a mirror of last year and this year in thought exchange. We did see an increase in that K through 5 grade as far as participation, and then a slight decrease in those without children that participated in this exchange and survey. But otherwise, the other grades and breakdowns that you see here are relatively consistent year over year. Common themes, the main thing I just want to point out that you'll see in multiple areas, it has to do with preparation, being challenged, quality, safety, community, diversity. Those are themes you see on here. The larger it is, the more it came up. And the ones that I just mentioned here were definitely consistent throughout the results that we received. So diving into the open-ended question, that's where you're going to get the most diversity in our results, as far as you can slice and dice it more ways than you could just the standard close-ended feedback. Question is on here, really centered around value when it comes to our district, and things that we can do to prepare our students and serve each and every student. There's a lot on here to digest. I won't necessarily do a full pause, but so that you can digest briefly what's on here. On the right, you can see that this was last year what was important, not in any sort of ranking order to our community, and this is again open-ended feedback. Those are statements and a summary of what was important. And this year you can see, again, some of those common terms and themes that came up from the community. It has to do with that sense of community, diversity, quality of education, how instructional technology plays a role in that. Safety came up in various capacities. Teacher dedication, consistency, and quality you'll hear about here. Extracurriculars actually had more feedback than we had in the previous year about its impact and its positivity on our community and students. And also references to real-world preparation at various levels. So top 5 common themes. So again, if you're thinking of going into this, everyone's providing all this open-ended feedback. There's 400 words or so per person, where this is then now trying to slice and dice that. Take that to the next level. You can see in this year versus previous year, this is actually a ranking of the top 5 common themes in that open-ended feedback. Again, I'll let you digest it. You can see that what's happening in the classrooms and the learning experience is obviously most important, student support along with that as well. And then you can see some shifts when it comes to the environment and extracurriculars that I mentioned are a little bit different this year than the previous year. These top 5 common themes details, this is the part that I'm going to encourage everyone to read on their own. There's 2 slides where basically we take that 1 through 5 of those common themes, and what you see is a check mark. Those are the things that our community felt were good in that category. They felt, for example, academic quality, variety of classes, real world skills, opportunities for college credit. That's a summary of a lot of the positives. Opportunities with the light bulb are on that topic, some feedback, constructive feedback that was provided by the community to aid in that specific topic. And again, I won't go over each of these. There's 2 slides that outlines all of them. But folks really did provide solid feedback, and what you see here is not every single person, but it's the greatest, the responses that have the greatest feedback and rankings and engagement. So those that we either put in the most or that folks rated as the most important out of a 1 through 5 scale. Highest rated thoughts, this is just a real-time snapshot, absolutely no edits to this whatsoever. This is verbatim, open-ended feedback that was provided by folks that took the survey, and they're the highest ones on here. So you can see, received the most rankings. I think 32 was the most a thought received as far as a ranking, and almost 5 stars there, and that's the true life skills. You can see safety, and also the safety of the relationship side of knowing that kids feel safe, loved in a good environment, and obviously teachers and the greatest asset from that perspective and their impact on learning. Common grounds and differences, this is something that I get really excited about, that we have the opportunity to see this, because a lot of times, you get data and you want to understand where various viewpoints are, and with Thought Exchange, we're able to actually use AI and other components to analyze the results and say these are the biggest differences in the 2 sides that we have. And if I can break down all the wordiness that is on there, it's really the focus that they're saying. So the community, there's 2 different sides of, focus being perhaps more on the nurturing, the support, things of that nature, and side A and B being more of the academics, the involvement with the families, things of that nature. So different approaches to learning is really how I would summarize it, where our community is on 2 different sides. However, I think the great part is the common ground that came out of that, no matter what the thoughts are on A and B. The common ground here is really good stuff. I mean, it's fostering curiosity, the use of technology. They may have different thoughts on how you use it, but there is a common theme of the need for it, period. The real world component, the importance of communication, teachers, all those things you see on there, those are the common ground elements. If you're looking on the right, those were things that were polarizing in the previous year, where we actually only had an A and B this year. This is something that I would encourage you to read on your own as well, but basically what this is based upon those different viewpoints. These are some suggestions that folks provided in their open-ended feedback that's relative. So again, this is just our community speaking, trying to be solutions-based, providing some feedback. Definitely encourage you to read through that. New this year, we did have an AI-supported question, so this was an opportunity where it took thoughts from various folks in the survey feature and then also shared it with the individuals as they were typing it. And you can see it's focused on instructional technology, internet safety, and general school safety, and what are the most important, why, and what we're doing well in those areas and what can be improved. And I know in a later presentation, some of these slides will come up again, so I won't go over them in depth. But what I think is important to call out for this group is, again, very similar to the side A and B of the different type of learning environments where kids thrive. There's still a common ground here on the A and B of, you have folks here that are expressing concerns about the excessive use of technology, and then others sharing, obviously, the support needed for technology and education. But regardless of which side folks are on, All respondents agreed about the importance of school safety, both physically, emotionally, and in various capacities. And also the opportunities to make sure communication and other elements of the school day when it comes to supporting students are done well. This as well, because again, I want to be conscious of time, and you will see this coming up again. What Thought Exchange does is in this same question, it provides the top 5 common themes relative to this topic. So you can see instructional technology was the most important common theme when we use the word technology. And there's thoughts that are positive, and then those where they provided opportunities for feedback. So again, using an example of instructional technology, it was stated that there are various benefits of students having access to devices and what that does for the learning experience, but then also feedback of making sure that there's not a reliance on that and consistency across the district when it comes to using that technology. So again, if you chose to go through all 5 that are on here, instructional technology, internet safety, general school safety, school communication, and school environment, these are the top 5 items that are most important to our families when you talk about technology. And to make sure we're clear on 4, school communication in this sense was more about grades, progress, communication with teachers, school, things to understand how your student is doing and the tools that the student has to complete their work. Performance. We'll fly through these, but again, please stop me at any time if I go too fast. This is where we have longitudinal data, and depending on which question is asked, you may see 24 through 19 with those gap years because of COVID, and others may be a shorter period depending on when we started asking the question. But overall, this is just our overall grade. You can see that the top reasons for the grades provided was relatively consistent. We may have swapped a few here and there, but B is the consistent grade that has been given to the district as the quality, the overall grade of our school district, and quality of instruction and student support are really the main reasons that folks are providing that grade to us. So that really hasn't changed. Student learning. So this is quality of education compared to neighboring school districts. So you'll see in the top right is a favorability score. So that means really anything from the same all the way up to much better. We are roughly 76% that fall into that category. You'll see the green that goes all the way across, meaning that we did remain consistent, where same was considered the highest ranking result over this period, but we did have an increase in much better. While favorability went down from 2023, it went from 83 to 76. We did add an option of being unsure for those that do not have students, so that we could further refine what we're looking at here. Quality of teachers is structures in the same way we just looked at for education, very similar in results, where you have same as being the common response, and results on that side. Favorability did go down from 94 to 80%, but this is exactly the same, where again we added an unsure component. So when you look overall, our grades are staying the same with same, and why favorability is being adjusted, we're having more in that unsure category. So that's going to impact that favorability score year over year. Quality of after-school athletics. Same situation. You'll see 71% here. We did adjust wording a little bit, so you see we're only looking at 2 years worth of data. Same as the response that was provided over that 2 years, and the adjustment was from 84% to 71%. But again, we added unsure, which has 16 respondents that have been added to that percent. Academies of Shakopee, real world preparation. I will note that there's been slight adjustments to the wording of this question over the years, just given the status of the Academies of Shakopee and whether it was brand new or something that's ongoing. You'll see the green where we remain consistent, the addition of unsure, which adjusts some of the ratings on there. And favorability for this one stayed roughly the same. So it was roughly at that 64%. Safety and critical technology support, you can digest those common themes. I think it'll be probably pretty clear. This is a new question, and it had to do with instructional technology and the availability to support student learning in our district. This was great. You can see this one here. This is 95%. Obviously, we can't back this up to any other year, but I would say that this is a really good favorability score where it was either about the same to much better. If you want to be a strict grader, you could take out the about the same on there, but still from a favorability perspective, it goes from that neutral up, and that is at 95%. Safety and security and other components from that perspective, this does have year-over-year data. 71% was the favorability score. We did add again some additional identifiers so that we could really understand the data that we're looking at. And favorability did increase by 8% for this one. So you'll see that positive star next to strongly agree. There's some pre-COVID data you can have just again if you're going to look at this in your time. School board performance. This is the one I know you've been eager to look at. School board performance, I will say, just straight out of the gate, school board, superintendent, and finance, they were all very similar in how it was. The grades stayed relatively flat. You were all generally, I believe, in the same letter grade, no significant shifts. I put some reminders on the bottom of things that have happened, but I will say it's great to see if you look at 2019 to 2021, you either had bad grades or I don't want to provide a grade at this point in time. You can make your own assumptions of why that's how our surveys received results, but for school board performance, you stayed at a B there. Superintendent performance, as I mentioned, very similar. You'll see those same patterns in there as well. And then financial management, again, very similar with the flat results remaining positive with that letter grade of a B.
So we are all B?
Pardon me?
We are all B, including the finance department.
And you're an A in my book, but a B in this.
No, I know that.
Yes.
I'm talking about.
You are correct.
Yeah, I remember last year, they were not nice for the finance. But I don't know this year. Is it different?
So the finance score is exactly in the same category as superintendent and school board, so it's B to B. And again, those years of 21 and 2019, you had consistent responses amongst the group.
It might have been 21.
Yeah.
I don't think it was last year. But
Decision making, this is definitely a good one to gauge results on. Adjustments were made to make sure that we could better understand neutral comments. Favorability did increase by 5%, where we're at 63% now, meaning there's an increase in trust that we're making the right decisions in the best interests of students and families that you'll see on here. And then engagement and connections, I think the big takeaway from respect and pride, you'll see at the bottom it summarizes, we were relatively neutral on the respect piece, although it was very high to begin with, so that is a positive. Pride did go up 3%, which is great as well, it's at 68%. Communication, the takeaway from this is a fancy little heat chart here, heat table, but what you can see, if I pull up my notes here, really the very aware and the areas of opportunity too. I mean, we know that pre-K, actually I was a little surprised with some of these, the pre-K and then the I do not have children in school obviously have the lowest. The pre-K, we have some opportunities, first coming into the district, maybe not as aware and connected, so we know that we always have greater opportunities to connect with those folks. And then you'll see the darker it gets and the higher percentage, where we actually have folks most engaged, which if you're looking at that is 6th through 7th grade and 10th through 12th, being the most aware, which is a shift from previous years. And then when we go to the next slide, communication methods, it definitely follows some patterns that we've seen in the past with that elementary age, younger age, and those that are not in school, relying more on print publications and things that are coming directly to their home or word of mouth, and more of the digital avenues, meaning those that are in between. So next steps, actually we've been working furiously on a really hefty and exciting leadership retreat that starts tomorrow. It's 3 days, and this information will also be formally shared with everyone at that. So you have principals, APs, deans, directors, assistant directors. It will definitely be a part of everything that we're doing in addition to the compelling vision. And obviously, there's discussions from a capital projects levy standpoint where this aids feedback and necessary research in those discussions as well. So going as fast as humanly possible, is there anything that I can answer that you did not review prior, or perhaps I should have elaborated on more?
A lot of information.
Yeah.
I'll be looking, I looked at it a few times before the meeting, I'll be looking at it several times, because there's just so much data in here. It's good, it's great stuff. We're doing the right thing according to the survey for the most part.
And I commend the community with the feedback that was provided. There was definitely a lot of thought put in. It wasn't just, let me just take this to take this. So we wouldn't get all of this if we didn't have a community that provided us solid results. So very happy with that. That 58% that took a survey, generally speaking, 30% we should be happy with out of those, and we're at 58. So it's definitely something to be proud of that we're getting feedback.
Well, and just an observation, I'm drawing a correlation to the extracurricular, because that seemed to be a standout in this survey in particular, which also speaks volumes to the fact that, hey, we passed question number 2 on the operating levy to afford more of those activities, sports, but certainly Mr. Andy Brown has to be pretty happy with just the participation we're seeing in this presentation from earlier today. And again, I'm drawing a correlation that it's because of how that investment was made to afford those opportunities to students, and that it's coming out, that the community is recognizing it as something favorable. Certainly a lot to digest. I hope that at our next school board development, we can look at some of this, see what's actionable. How do you get, for a B, for example, the grade, how do you get the C's to say, well, what would it take? Is it something that's missing, or is it more communication? Like, what are some of those actionable things? Kind of what to do with the data. But I agree with my colleague, Mr. Alders. There's so much to kind of unpack here.
Yeah.
Look forward to looking into it more.
And I agree with that, Mr. Brophy, as well. Is there any untapped audience areas, things that we go into further? That will definitely be a part of our review and our discussion over the next year of how can we make sure that everyone's voices are heard, and we can dive deeper on things that maybe we decide we want to go deeper on.
Yeah, I know, I like going through the thoughts, the shared thoughts, and those are the people who are passionate. They had something to say, and to your earlier point, the vast majority of them had very, very thoughtful, constructive feedback, and that was rewarding to see. And whether it was praise or opportunities, it was just encouraging to see that.
Well, the thing with Thought Exchange, not that I don't get paid to say this by any means, but is that I think the structure gives a voice to folks that maybe wouldn't normally provide that feedback by being able to rank and interact with those that do articulate their thoughts, and I think that's a really powerful tool for us. Sometimes you only have the loudest person in the room, or maybe we don't do a good job of hitting everybody. So I find that very valuable for us to be able to have true feedback.
Thank you for all your work on this.
Yes, thank you.
Next on our agenda is an action item, item 12.1, and Tiffany will remain where she is to present on this item. This is the Academy Champion, Business and Entrepreneurship Academy Champion Agreements.
Yes, and I don't have anything to put on the screen here because it seems more appropriate just to talk through some of the high points. You do have the agreement in this action item as a proposal for the board to take action on, but at a high level, Hometown Bank has been a valued B&E Academy champion. since the inception of the academies, and last year around this time they provided a 1-year extension. We worked together, I should say, on a 1-year extension to their contract that would be due on June 30th of this month. And the reason for that is I really commend them. Conversations, Dr. Redmond was there and many others from the high school, is they wanted to take a true assessment of, are we being an academy champion? Are we doing what we're supposed to do? And are we providing the value that the students need? And how can we make sure that we're fully committed? Those conversations were had. They've done a great job of adjusting their involvement, looking at ways they can optimize engagement and have the right people where they would like them. And then in addition to those conversations, there's actually been an opportunity to partner, to have Hometown Bank partner with Canterbury Park, very similar to how the city and the county partner for human services. And that was advantageous to both parties because they want to provide a well-rounded experience for our students. Hospitality and everything that Canterbury Park can provide complements them very well. While you only have Hometown Bank here, the intent is that you would see another one hopefully very soon, should there not be any legal concerns with the Academy Champion contract, where actually both would be the Academy Champions. You'll notice if you open up that attachment, this agreement and Canterbury, should it be added in the future, are actually for 4 years versus 5, so that they can end on the same term as all of our other champions, just for consistency. And Hometown's contract is not dependent upon Canterbury, so that is why it is okay to have it on here. They are very excited and hopeful for that, but it is not dependent. They are all on board, and they are very involved too. I can say I'm being on the Shakopee Chamber Board and Foundation Board. Hometown is all over the place, and they're doing really great things, as is Mr. Reynolds that was here earlier. Great partner. So my ask is for the recommendation to approve the new contract period, which is a continuation of the Academy Champion partnership with Hometown Bank.
I'll make the motion to approve this presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Peterson and a second by Brophy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next on our agenda is another action item, item 12.2. This is a capital projects levy presentation and resolution. And here to present is Dr. Redmond.
Most, if not all, of this presentation will be a repeat, a very brief repeat, kind of an overview, a reminder, and then we'll move on to the recommendation of a resolution to put a capital projects levy on the ballot on November 5th of 2024. Capital projects levy is often commonly referred to as a technology levy or a tech levy. It really is all about safety, internet safety, cybersecurity, physical safety, kind of all those kind of, a lot of those things that aren't visible necessarily, that go into a lot of the, operational support, especially, with things related to technology, and then critical support. And it's one of those, everywhere you look in student learning, there's technology. Even the curriculum we get now is often online or updated online, and lots of the learning activities, and just we've talked a lot about the academies at Shakopee this evening. A lot of those student experiences and how they connect with others is laden with technology as well. Background information, I won't read all of this to you, but this is the voters in Shakopee approved the current capital projects levy back on May 5th of 2015 for a time period of 10 years, meaning that, we have the current tax year where the revenue, being provided by the taxpayers is to be used for the 24-25 school year, and then the final tax year is calendar year 2025. That is that 10th year, and so the earliest opportunity to renew capital projects levy in terms of placing it on a ballot is this November 5th of 2024. And again, part of that community conversation that Tiffany shared, a lot of feedback on the importance of school safety and critical support. And as I've mentioned, when we talk about a capital projects levy renewal, what we're really talking about in this case, and it's why it's highlighted in blue twice there, is a continuation. In other words, if the current capital projects levy did not have an expiration after 10 years, we wouldn't need to do this renewal. And the idea is with the ask of the voters would be to continue this same levy in terms of the tax rate and those things for another 10 years. So, carrying it forward. And so that is the idea. In essence, it's the same ballot language, the same tax rate, because the total net tax capacity is different than it was 10 years ago. That amount of revenue is different, but also so are the expenditures on technology and safety as well. Again, it's a renewal projected, and we've worked with our financial partners from PMA and others, that the revenue for the 26-27 school year, which would be calendar year 2026, is projected to be $6.2 million. That would be, if it were successfully approved by the voters on this November. If not, that we would in essence have the absence of our capital projects levy revenue, and that would certainly be a large impact, a large negative impact on our ability to operate the district, that we would have to make significant financial adjustments for. And there's a list of those things. Sample ballot, which is also in the resolution, I kind of put it there. It is basically the same as the ballot language from 2015. And then the capital projects levy school board recommendation, it would be my recommendation that the capital projects levy renewal be added to the November 5th, 2024 general election ballot. The question then is, what does the school board need to do at this evening's meeting to have the renewal placed on the November 24 general election ballot? And that is very straightforward. The board would need to approve a resolution calling the capital projects levy renewal election for November 5th of 2024. And then Tiffany, I'm sure will put that resolution up. And as she's doing that, I'll pause briefly if there's any kind of questions or thoughts.
Mr. Chair, I'll just make a comment. We saw it in the thought exchange feedback, included obviously in the presentation. There's a common theme that technology and use of technology is important, as is safety. And so I think it dovetails nicely with presenting this renewal. I hope it will be received favorably. I think we're being consistent, both with the community and ultimately for the betterment of our students in the district. Personally, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Yeah, just to build on that, Brian is here. He presented to us a few weeks back, and these are essential services. It's not optional. And so if we didn't have this levy, we're still going to have to provide those services, and you made that point earlier, Dr. Evans, as well. So there's not really too many places we can cut. So now, if this didn't pass, we're at a $6.2 million deficit, basically, going into the following year.
So you had it in the presentation, technology is embedded everywhere. Everywhere. If this doesn't pass, we're still going to do the cybersecurity. We're still going to do all these things that we have to do. We're just going to have to figure out where we're going to cut the money from. It's that simple. And we also talked earlier, technology items do not count as long-term facility maintenance options. So that doesn't, we can't go, well, we can do that with this money, but we can't. Legally, we can't. It's just not an option. And one great thing about school districts is the people get to decide how they want to see their district going forward. unlike a lot of elected officials, we don't just get to say, we're just gonna do this. And from what we saw in the survey, technology is very important to the residents of the district, and I really hope that they can continue to support this, because supporting this is supporting the future, because technology is everywhere. Without it, I mean, this is not 40 years ago when I was in school doing Oregon Trail on a very green screen monitor, you know, and
Control data, Plato.
yeah, pretty much.
And what did you die of?
Dysentery probably.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, I always made it because I was better than everybody. But but this is important, and I think the people of the district will continue to support the schools, and I hope they do.
I'd like to make a quick comment. This is very important. This is a continuation, because the last time we have done was 2015, when we were doing bond referendum. If my memory is okay.
Right.
And also, technology is everything, the cameras, the doors, the curriculum, the infinite campus cameras. So parents can access and see, the lessons they are taking that day. They have access. They can see the projects that the students need to take care of, everything. It's very important. And it's like, it's a flavor for the education. It's integral. Without technology, we cannot run the school. And I will make the motion for the technology, the capital project of the technology to be on the ballot for November 2024.
Motion by Mohammed,
Second.
second by Brophy. Any further discussion?
I think it's important just to clarify that this is a continuation, meaning that this is not a tax increase. This is a continuation of the taxes that have been paid since 2015. So that's what continuation means. And the ballot doesn't reflect that, but you'll notice that the ballot language does not say this is a tax increase. So hopefully that message to the community will be loud and clear that this is a continuation, this is not a tax increase. Because I think that's going to be extremely important to the passage of this.
Yeah, if I may, just in terms of the resolution itself, and I'm not going to read through all that's in there, but what it is, it's the calling of an election, and then embedded in that is the notification responsibilities. The board clerk is called out quite often in terms of all the various public notice that has to be given and by when. And then if we scroll down, again, I know this was in the presentation, to the sample ballot is also prominently displayed, and and then other pieces there. But just wanted, and this is in Boardbook in its entirety, and we've worked with Bill Manazzi, the finance team, worked with PMA, the financial advisors, and then we've back and forth with making sure with school district attorneys in terms of the language and having things in appropriate form for both this, and then you'll see the school board election resolution shortly as well. But that is it to kind of summarize all the different parts, and it's an extensive resolution.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Brophy,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Aldridge,
Yes.
Johnson? Mohammed?
Yes.
Valdez?
Yeah.
Resolution passes. Thank you. Next on our agenda is another resolution, item 12.3, school board election, resolution and filing period. And Tiffany Olson will present.
May I speak from this spot, Chair Smith? Is that okay? I'm tethered. So, as noted in the action item title here, I'm here to present a proposal for the board to approve a resolution related to the election of school board members on the November 5th, 2024 general ballot. There are 3 school board seats, as you know, that will expire in January 2025. And it is necessary for us to hold a general election for the purpose of electing 3 school board members for the term of 4 years, and that term would start on the first Monday of January 2025. If you are following along, I'm reading some highlights of the lengthy resolution, so I'm not going to read it verbatim on here. Some additional items to note is that the general election would be called, and that this recommended resolution would be held in conjunction with the statewide general election, AKA no special election. Just felt I needed to say that. And that the election, just for clarity too, we did already state the date of November 5th, 2024, but that would be between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Just want to make sure we have that on the record, that this is what that resolution would be calling for. The notice of election would follow all of our Secretary of State guidelines. Some of those are outlined in this resolution, and others we follow as we need to. Some additional information that might be helpful to know is that the candidate filing period would begin at 7 a.m. on July 30th, 2024, and it would run through 5 p.m. on August 13th, 2024. That would be done here at the district office during our normal business hours during that Monday through Thursday period, and we have a drop box for Friday to make sure that we can handle that accordingly. Per the Secretary of State, there is a $2 filing fee that is cash or check, and we handle that appropriately with the Finance Department for that. In terms of the Secretary of State guidelines, and then candidates do have 48 hours to withdraw after the August 13th deadline at 5 p.m. should they want to do that. There's all sorts of other items when it comes to eligibility, both MSBA and the Secretary of State outline that. Happy to remind or share any of that, but that is provided to all the candidates with other resources as well. An affidavit of candidacy is what is provided, and there are other details that again are provided to anyone that files in that period. But in order to do that, again, today's action item would be for the board to approve the resolution related to that calling, and then we would proceed with the proper notification with our community. I'm happy to take any questions, or Dr. Everett, please let me know if I missed anything on there so that you all feel like you have the right information.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the school board election.
I'll second it.
The motion by Peterson and second by Aldrich. Any further discussion?
Tiffany does not want to manage another special election. That's all I'll say.
You caught that?
Picked up on that, huh?
Wow.
All right, seeing no further discussion, Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Brophy,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Aldridge,
Yes.
Johnson, Mohammed,
Yes.
Valdez.
Yeah.
Resolution passes. Thank you. All right, that is it for action items. Next on our agenda is item 13, committee reports and other information. Start with Michelle.
Nothing super important from the community engagement meeting that we had, was it a month ago, I think? Mary Hernandez is gonna come by on the August meeting. Kind of more on a personal note, on the HOSA students, I'm a part of HOSA, pretty involved in HOSA, and we actually have 9 students that are heading out to the HOSA Internationals out in Texas. It's tomorrow, they're gonna go head out, so pretty excited for them, and also I'm just waiting for AP scores to come out in 2 weeks, so that's what I've been kind of just, the deadline ticking down in my head.
All right, yeah. Good luck on that.
How many
Yeah.
did you take?
3.
So 3 5 cents.
Hopefully.
Are you following the Twitter?
I am it's on a tab right here actually. Every time I hope it's one of the ones I took.
Try to awfully quiet. So we had finance facilities, certainly unpacked enough of that today. It was remiss in our last meeting, we did actually have our first outdoor spaces meeting. That's one of the committee groups that we put together, just to look at how we're using outside spaces and where they're most heavily utilized, and turns out they're well utilized, but more to come. We have some homework to do over the summer and we'll reconvene. We heard that mountain bike season is almost upon us, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say June 30th is the deadline to get students signed up, and we can always use coaches, so jump on board. A lot of on-the-job training, but looking forward to that season as well. That's all I got.
Not much has been going on at Southwest Metro.
That was sarcasm for those following at home.
As you are aware, we have, last Tuesday night, we prepared for a tornado in case there was a tornado during our interviewing of candidates, but we interviewed 2 candidates, great candidates. It was hard to make a decision, but the board did unanimously select Dr. Jeff Horton, who is the current superintendent for GFW, which is Gibbon Fairfax Winthrop. He will be joining Southwest Metro as their permanent full-time superintendent starting July 1. So we have a board meeting Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. to approve the contract for him to start on July 1. So very excited to have that process behind us. And thank you to Dr. Redmond for stepping in and helping out at Southwest Metro when there's been a need on an interim superintendent basis. That was, I know it was very much appreciated by staff, and just everything that you did over there in a very short period of time. So, and then we haven't mentioned that our boys volleyball club team, our state champions. It's kind of fitting that the 5th year of it being a club sport and the last year before it transitions to being part of the state high school league, that the champions are where it started here in Shakopee. So it was a fitting way to go out, and I went to quite a few of the games, and just, wow, I mean, those kids can really play volleyball. It was very impressive, and look forward to what a competitive season at the state high school league with more teams involved will be like. So it's cool.
Do I have it right? They won 15-13 in the 5th set in the
Yes.
championship game?
Yes.
The championship match. That's awesome.
Yeah, I went back and forth, and it was very tight. They played Rogers in the championship game, and yeah, it was back and forth, but they only played a 15 in the 5th set, and just it's kind of a fluke type of a play, and they won it for Shakopee. So happy for the 2 ladies that started the program here, and I believe one of them is going to be our head coach next year for the boys. So continuing that. So.
Tim had all the same things I did, so I'm done. Joe?
Finance facilities, yeah, we covered everything here on the, in the meeting. Next month on, let me get these dates wrong, maybe I won't. July 17th, July 24th, I'm gonna be at Rhythm on the Rails in the Shakopee school tent. Not sure who's playing that night, but hopefully it'll be as gorgeous as it was last Wednesday night for the first one. And if you haven't been to Rhythm on the Rails, it's just a fun experience. It's crowded, it's festive, it's just a great time. The city, the chamber puts on, for the years, it's just been a great event. Nobody's brought up graduation, and we had a couple of them. Tim, Jeff, Chad, and I were all at Takata graduation on June 6th. and Principal Eric Service does a great job, and it's just a great ceremony. And of course, grad night on the 8th was just, it really is the best part about being on the school board, is handing out diplomas, and it's just the best. So for those who might think about running for school board, you got that to look forward to. Maybe only that, but that.
Wow.
Did I make that sound negative? I don't know. It's great being on school board. I'll convince myself. That's all I have.
Mohammed?
I don't, everything was good. I don't have much to say. I need to go home.
As well said. Thank you. Caroline?
Well, we have the community engagement on the 28th of May. Not really much to really add rhythm of the rails, just signing up, doing more community engagement. And then kudos to the boys volleyball, and graduation was spectacular, so kudos to all the individuals that graduated. So.
Detail last time.
Oh, yeah. I thought like it being my last meeting, I thought I would have something like more to say, but it didn't anticlimactic. But honestly, I don't have much. Just waiting for my AP test scores to come, anxiously, patiently. So I wasn't able to go to the community engagement meeting during May, but I heard that there's some good things coming out from that, so that's good. Graduation was a fun experience. It felt really good to be called out in front of the entire crowd. It felt really good.
We were all trying to high five you, but it didn't quite work out that way.
But yeah, I don't. Besides that, I don't really have much.
Thank you. Jim?
Yeah, leadership retreat starts tomorrow morning, 7:45, Charleston Meadows. Day 2 will be at City Hall here in Shakopee, and then day 3 will be at the district office. It's kind of the one time all year that we have prolonged time together with our directors, assistant directors, supervisors, principals, APs, deans, everybody. So we'll have a report on that next month at the board meeting, but it's a wonderful learning opportunity.
Thank you. Tiffany?
I do not have anything.
Brian? Anything?
I hope that 95% favorability on instructional tech is reflected in the vote in November. That's all I have to say.
Well said. So, last word, Dr. Evans.
I got nothing further, so.
All right, thank you. Next up, upcoming meetings and important dates. You can see them up on the screen there. I guess you can read for yourself. I don't know if anything worth calling out, Tiffany or Dr. Redmond?
We have our summer program starting July 8th. There's a lot of great work going into that. Rhythm on the Rails, if you are looking for the lineup and dates, that's linked there. And otherwise, if you're curious about some back to school year dates, that School Year Hub will provide a bunch of the community opportunities that will come in August, but we won't talk about that yet.
All right, thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Would you like to make a motion?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to go home.
I'll second.
Motion by Mohammed, second by Aldrich. All those in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Opposed? We adjourn.
Thank you.